Tour of Flanders is it's more like war than a bike race.
This is their World Cup, this is their World Championships. This is one of the biggest days of sport in Belgium.
He comes home as winner of the 89th Tour of Flanders. Just look at that. There's a big message in that powerful victory salute. He has won La Ronde.
He is pounding that machine of his. He's eating up the cobbles of the Bosberg.
And now he must be riding on adrenaline. He's got to be absolutely shattered. Stein de Boulder goes back to back in the Ronde van Vlaanderen.
The Belgians understand they've witnessed a very heroic bike race here this afternoon.
Fabian Cancellara takes victory.
It's so beautiful, this moment. It's so beautiful.
It's Belgium's big day, the 95th Ronde van Vlaanderen. The Tour of Flanders, a race watched by 800,000 Belgians on the roads of the Flemish province, and more than 30% of the nation's population tune in on television. And for the first time, we really are proud that you're watching us with us here on SBS. 256 kilometres of racing, including 18 famous cobbled climbs featuring the big names of the sport. You'll see Cancellara, Bonen, Hincapie, Hushoft and O'Grady, just to name a few. This is an epic battle. It's history on SBS. It's world cycling at its very best. Let's now head straight to the roads of Belgium for the 95th Ronde van Vlaanderen. Your Tour of Flanders commentary team, Dave McKenzie and Matthew Keenan.
It's much more than a bike race. Just as the Melbourne Cup stops a nation here in Australia, the Tour of Flanders stops a nation in Belgium. Robbie McEwen, he's married to a Belgium. He's lived there his whole career. He's only finished the race once. Mark Cavendish, not one of the favourites. David McKenzie, this is the race for the Flanderans. The world champion, Thor Hushoff, he wants it desperately. But the Belgians, they want it for Tom Bonen.
They certainly do. Look, it's an incredible day. It's an incredible bike race for anyone who's been to Belgium and been to Flanders. It's just an amazing day. Heinrich Hausler there, the Australian, Tom Bonen, really, maybe he could be the only man that could challenge Fabian Cancellara. They're all signing on. How's the sign?
It's a message of Fabian Cancellara, the defending champion, who rode away convincingly 1 year ago. He did the same a week later in the Paris-Roubaix, so much so that many people thought he had a motor in his bike. He didn't. It was a big one on top. Lots of support for Tom Bonen, but also for Philippe Gilbert, who doesn't come from the Flanders region. He's further south. He's from Wallonia, the French-speaking part of the country. But he's one of the few riders that can unite the country and bring them all together. They'd be happy to see him win as well.
Well, he's certainly got the horsepower in the legs, Philippe Gilbert. Whether or not it will be his day today, but a beautiful start in Bruges because beautiful town, touristic town in Belgium.
Early breakaway that moved off the front. It was Australia's Mitchell Docker in the white colours of Skill Shimano that initiated the breakaway. He had Sebastian Turgot with him, along with Roger Hammond from Garmin Cervelo. Jeremy Hunt from Team Sky was there for a while as well. At one point, they got out to a lead of 6 minutes and 15 seconds until we approached the first of the critical climbs, the Old Claremont. And then we saw Matthew Heyman, another Australian from Team Sky, come to the front, start to do some damage. And then that breakaway group, it got destroyed, it got swallowed up as the big men are now starting to show themselves.
Well, it certainly did, and Matt Heyman, a rider who is very familiar with the northern part of racing. He rode for Rabobank for quite a few years. A domestique and a good one, and he's doing the job today very well indeed.
Mitchell Docker in the white colours of Skill Shimano. He said before the day got underway, had a brief chat to him, he was going to try and get in the early break. It's his third attempt at the Ronde van Vlaanderen, and being on the breakaway before the critical points was his best chance to finish. Philippe Gilbert, he captures Docker, so too does Tom Bonen. Geraint Thomas not far away. This was when they made it onto the Peterberg. This is one of the critical points of the race.
Oh, it really was, all of those cobbled climbs and still more to come. And you can see the field there, still quite large, but slowly cutting back. But then the Koppenberg, this climb, I've ridden over this, I can tell you, it is one of the steepest, one of the hardest climbs. The best place to be is out in front like this 3 or 4 riders here. If you've got a space of road and you can pick your own path, that's what helps. You see the peloton in the back there, even though it's still small, very, very tough. And look at them. They both try and pick the edge of the road. That's the smoothest run.
This climb is only 600 metres long, but it's one of the most famous in the race. And another one of the young Australians. As Docker is going back to the group, there was the move that came from Sylvain Chavanel, and joining him in the Astana colours, another one from the class of 1986, Simon Clark, a Victorian on the move. He's away with Chavanel.
Well, Clark, another rider who I don't think you'd expect. I'd expect him more to excel in Liège, Bastogne-Liège, Flèche-Wallonne. He's a slightly built rider, probably not one for these tough cobbles, but Clark still. And look at the speed there of Hunt. Just, he's been out there all day. The speed of the riders as they go are very, very slow. These guys are fresh and they're still not going fast. This just shows how tough the Koppenberg is.
And Philip Gilbert just showing a few cards early on the Koppenberg. Good to see that Baden Cook was towards the front. Fabian Cancellara, we haven't seen a lot of him, which for Fabian is a good sign because he hasn't played any cards just as yet and following the moves, and his team hasn't been called upon to do much of the chasing, but he's on the wheel of Tom Bonin. He knows the men that he needs to follow.
Well, he knows where to position himself. Thor Hushovd, the current world champion, also there as well. But still the attacking was going on at the front there.
Rabobank, Sebastian Langeveld, who was the winner of the Het Nieuwsblad, which is the first big race on the Belgium calendar. It's the opening weekend. Rabobank with some cards to play. Also looking today for Lars Boom, who's a former world champion in cyclocross. And, well, they're the sort of skills that can come in very handy on this sort of course.
Look, it's a constant surging and stopping and starting that really saps the legs. Remember, it's almost 260 kilometres, and you've got to be able to go with those surges, but you've also got to, you have to measure your effort every time. You can't be jumping all day, and this is where the likes of Cancellara, I think, he's relaxed. Look, he's confident, no doubt. Everyone's saying it's a race for second place. I don't think it is. I think there's still a long way to go.
Simon Clark in the Astana colours, away with Sylvain Chavanel, who you might remember from last year's Tour de France. 2 stage wins and 2 stints in the yellow jersey. Lars Boom in the centre of the picture from Rabobank. They've been very active. Still those 2 leaders off the front as we go to live pictures now with just a 9-second advantage as the Leopard Trek team starting to do the chasing. This is what you would expect with the big favourite, Fabian Cancellara, in the squad.
Well, now, finally, really. Oh, and look at this. It looks like, oh, they've gone off the road and 4 or 5 riders there. You can see how narrow the roads are. Concrete roads, they're really bumpy, and they are going full tilt into every corner. Just watch the rider here as he comes around.
It looks like Tom Stamsnyder, the big Dutchman from Leopard Trek. He just overshot the corner slightly, got the foot out, managed to keep it upright. Lucky he had some runoff.
Well, what you could see the camera there too. The motorbikes were banked up at the front, and I think they might have even got in the way. There's another shot of it there. They were lucky they had a driveway to go up there, but 3-4 riders. This happens all day. It's one of the most dangerous bike races of the year. It's one of the toughest, and I'll tell you what, if you've got any fear, you just do not end up at the front of this bike race. But now they've eased up. 8 seconds still is the gap. Simon Clark out in front with Sylvain Chavanel. Thomas Voeckler, another rider we were saying earlier, very similar to Chavanel, led the Tour de France quite a few years ago now, and probably rides above his ability, but he rides with a lot of heart, and we love to see that.
A few of the Australians in this group. Baden Cook, the Saxo Bank colours, in the centre of the picture, and just a couple of positions behind him, Heinrich Hausler, one of 3 Australians to get on the podium at the Tour of Flanders. Phil Anderson twice second in this race in 1985 behind his teammate Eric van der Raden. In 1988 behind Eddie Plancard. We've also had Stuart O'Grady finish in 3rd place in the Tour of Flanders back in 2003. And in 2009 it was Heinrich Hausler who finished in 2nd position behind the sole breakaway, which was Stijn de Volder, who currently sits in 3rd position. We're in the colours of the Belgium national champion. 57 kilometres to race, 6 of the major climbs to come.
Well, and they are the majors, aren't they? I mean, we've already had some tough ones. Look at this constant off the road, on the road. It's really, really tough. I think it's a little bit like Roubaix in the sense that I think Roubaix quite a few years ago, the average winner had at least 1 or 2 punches, 1 crash. That might not happen here, but certainly you'll be off the road. Stijn de Volder, he's got himself back up there. I noticed before he was back in the 2nd group, so he's got himself back to the front. He's this rider that very few, he can peak one day of the year. And when he does it, it's generally the Tour of Flanders. He loves this bike race. He's from this region. Can he do it today? I don't know. I mean, he's on a different team. He's not on Quick Step anymore.
His former team, Quick Step, as we go inside the car. Wilfred Peters was the gentleman in the blue colours on the right-hand side of the screen, just giving the instructions to the Quick Step team, who are well represented, as Gert Stegmans just sits behind his former teammate Stein de Volder. But of course their main card to play has to be Tom Boonen.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Tom, he's won this race twice. Of course, second last year to Cancellara. He just couldn't follow him towards the end in the final. He's had pretty good legs, though. He took out Gent Wevelgem, and it would have given him a big confidence boost, you would have thought. Look at the peloton now. It's shrunk considerably in the last 20-odd kilometres. But the weather, look, the other thing we haven't mentioned, the weather, it's actually a great day. It's 14 degrees, the sun's out, and not too much wind.
Into the Saxo Bank car, the team of Baden Cook.
Okay, guys, be ready now. Okay, the next sector, pavé, be ready for when they go, you need to be there. The next sector is Marta. You need to be there, guys. Come on.
So Bjarne Riis giving instructions to the Saxo Bank team. He's talking about the next section of pavé. In addition to the 18 climbs dotted across the Ronde van Vlaanderen or the Tour of Flanders, whichever you prefer to call it, there's also plenty of flat sections of cobblestones. This is Lars Boom for Rabobank. We've got Bosenhagen in here from Team Sky, Chavanel from Quickstep, and Simon Clark comfortably, in relative terms at least, sitting at the back of that group. But he was the one with Chavanel that initiated the move.
He was, and look, suddenly now the gap's gone back out to 22 seconds. Still a lot of racing yet to be done. You might be looking, thinking it's only 55 kilometres. It's the hardest 55 kilometres. They've done 200 already. 4 riders now in the break. If Clark can get over the next couple of cobble sections, you never know what can unfold here.
This is Frédéric Goudon from FDJ, the Frenchman who knows how to race across cobbles. He was the winner of Paris-Roubaix in 1997. That was a long time ago. Henk Vogels finished in 10th place then, and he's been retired for a while. But for Frédéric Goudon, this is a race where experience counts. He's finished it 14 times so far throughout his career. He's got as much as just about anybody.
And we'll never forget the Paris-Roubaix ride. Such an unlikely winner. They attacked each other, the big stars, Andre Schmil, Museo back in the day. And he ended up come over the top of them on the velodrome in a sprint finish. And everyone said, who is this guy? Well, the French certainly knew who he was. Brilliant ride, and he's still at it on the attack now. 24 seconds the gap. It's a good move for Simon Clark, the Australian. He's a tough rider. As I said, he's only a small rider, but he's handling the cobbles well today.
I mentioned earlier on Clark Docker, the class of 1986, along with Matt Goss, 3 riders in this race from Australia who were born in 1986 and rode together at the Junior World Championships, where all 3 of them collected a rainbow jersey as part of the team's pursuit. We also saw Matt Goss get the Madison. Amiga Pharma Lotto, one of the favourites with Philippe Gilbert.
Come on, you.
Mark Sargent was the man on the left-hand side of the screen there that had the responsibility of doing the talking to the team. Herman Friesen driving the car. For Amiga Pharma Lotto, this is such an important race, particularly with their in-house battle within Belgium with Quickstep.
Well, the local newspapers, they really do build up that in-house battle, don't they? Because it's such a big race on the calendar for the Belgian teams, for all of the Belgian teams, in fact. And if they get one win over them here, gee, it'll be a good one.
Frédéric Goudon is trying to go across. Greg Van Avermaet is the man that's responding with Matthew Heyman sitting on his wheel. There's 54 kilometres to race. The next major climb is the Molenberg, and that tops out with 49 kilometres to go. Plenty of racing to come. It could be an historical day for Australian cycling. It isn't a first, at least, that the Tour of Flanders is being covered live, the 95th edition, and there's 2 Australians in the thick of the action. Matthew Heyman from Team Sky, he's in the second group on the road, 20 seconds behind Simon Clark, who's in the front with Sylvain Chavanel. David McKenzie, you know these roads well. You've lived in the area. It's a tough day ahead 52 kilometres of genuine battle.
Well, I can tell you, if I was out there today, I'd be happy because the weather is good, as I said. The sun was shining earlier. 14 degrees. It's not warm, but it's not cold on Belgian standards. And not much wind. I mean, they have had some terrible days here. You see the screen on the left, that's the leaders on the road. The second screen, this is the group now in between the peloton that contains Matt Hayman, the other Australian. And you can see the gap, they're starting to close it. And Hayman now, I noticed, has started to work with the group. I thought he might have been playing the domestique role. I'm sure he will be, but you think he can see now it's worth his while getting across to that front group.
Wilfred Peters giving instructions to the team. They've got a strong position with Sylvain Chavanel in that front group, the leading group of 4. And worth noting in that second group is Lars Bohm back on board with the leading group. Chavanel in the blue and white colours of Quick Step. It's then Australia's Simon Clark in the Astana colours sitting in second position, followed by Lars Bohm, a former world champion in cyclocross. Bike handling skills, there is Forte. And then it's one of the rising stars of world cycling, Edvald Bosenhagen, sitting at the back of the group. Now that chasing group, David, we've got one of the riders in there from Rabobank, Tom Leeser, who's not working, not chasing, not closing down to his teammate Lars Bohm. But Matthew Hayman, he's made the decision that he will work. He'll try and go across to Bosenhagen.
Well, having 2 riders in the break there from Sky and from Rabo, suddenly that puts a little bit more pressure, doesn't it, on Quick Step, on Leopard Trek, of course. So we're going to see the action happen pretty soon. 10 seconds is the gap now between them, so they're going to catch back up fairly soon indeed. Here comes the peloton now. It'll be interesting to see who is on the front. I'd imagine it'll be Leopard Trek.
It is Leopard Trek that are doing the chasing. Garmin Cervelo putting some men towards the front as well. Among the favourites, Heinrich Hausler is still in contention. So too is the world champion Thor Hushovd, whose best result so far this season, and it might play into the myth of the curse of the rainbow jersey. So far, his best result is 6th place in a stage at the Tour of Oman. Not a big result for a world champion.
Well, he got caught out at Milan-San Remo, didn't he? He got caught behind the crash, as well as a lot of the other favourites. So he's moved on from that, though. He said his form is pretty good. In fact, the team press conference, they were all quite happy with their form. Tyler Farrar, who finished top 10 last year, he said everything was ticking along nicely for him as well.
Almost at the bottom of the Molenberg, and we just saw Bosenhagen in the black colours and Bohm in the orange colours of Rabobank having the conversation at the back of this group, maybe having the discussion as to whether they wait or not for their chasing teammates. This is Tom Leeser at the back of the group, Greg Van Avermaet for BMC Racing, Frederic Goudon in the white and blue colours of FDJ, and Matthew Hayman, good to see him in the move. His wife was due to give birth today, and he might have missed the race. She's done the right thing. She's held on. Hayman's in contention.
Well, looks like we've got a crash here, and I'm just wondering whether or not it is Iglinski. I was just about to say, it looks like Maxim Iglinski from Astana. He's come down, really one of those dark horse riders, top 10 last year, one of the protected riders on Astana. I wonder if Simon Clark is getting this information.
Speaking to Simon Clark this morning as he was in the team bus on the way to the race, he said his role was to get in the moves in the last 100 kilometres to look after Maxim Iglinski, who, as you said, was a top 10 last year. Spoke to Shane Bannon as well, who's the general manager for Green Edge, the new burgeoning Australian team that's hoping to get into the Tour de France and races like this one next year. And he said that with the concentration on Leopard Trek and with Fabian Cancellara, the big favourite, Quick Step, Sky, Rabobank, they've got to make this sort of move, get in the breakaways and force the others to chase. Onto the Molenberg, it's only 300 metres long, but it's got a maximum gradient of 14%, and it's Chavanel that's taken the initiative. The battle is on further down the road as Geraint Thomas is leading the charge, looking after Juan Antonio Fletcher.
Well, Chavanel is really putting it on here, isn't he? Peloton there, look at that, fighting all the way to the bottom. Look how narrow it is, and you can see why they fight, because it just stops at bottlenecks at the bottom, and riders are forced to almost get off their bikes.
Well, there's 18 climbs in the Ronde van Vlaanderen, and there's 18 battles to get to the bottom, and then 18 battles to get to the top. Geraint Thomas has done his job. It's Juan Antonio Fletcher now that comes to the front. The Spaniard with Fabian Cancellara following and looking comfortable.
look at the crowd, the noise of the crowd as they come up the climb. Every climb is like this. They get out in the thousands to watch it.
Fletcher looks across his shoulder. He won't be surprised to see Fabian Cancellara, but he might be surprised to see Fabian looking as if he's not going to blow a candle out.
Well, it really is at the front of the race, waiting and watching. Goudon there has gone back to the peloton. 30 seconds still at the head of the race, though. So that front group of four, they're doing a fine job out in front. Here's the back of the peloton. They're still coming across the top.
They've got the fences up to try and hold them back. 800,000 spectators expected on the roadside today. 900 corner marshals, 600 police and 200 additional stewards. Fabian Cancellara, he doesn't have much team support around him, but does he need it?
Well, the gap, you'd think it's small enough if Cancellara can unleash that big move, but the question I ask now, though, is it going to be hard enough for Cancellara? We've got 48 kilometres to go. Okay, still a lot of racing to go, but will he be able to light it up enough that he can shake the likes of Bonin, you know, all those strong riders that potentially can follow him? Chavanel, though, he's decided to go for it.
He's got 6 kilometres to go before he gets to the next climb, which is the Leeberg, and that is the fifth at last climb on the race. This is Thomas de Gent from Vacances Soleil with Baden Cook sitting behind him. Last year, Baden Cook was riding for Cancellara. This year, the boy from Benalla, he gets to play his own hand.
Well, Baden Cook's the type of rider I've always thought he can be a classic specialist. He's really made his name at the Tour de France, winning the green jersey, winning a stage. But I've always thought, we know the type of rider he is. He's such a tough rider. He's got a lot of class, but he's got such a lot of heart. And that's what you need. And he's got a lot of guts, and you need that at the Ronde.
He's had a tough few years, Baden Cook. He's had a tough maybe 4 or 5 years, really. He won that green jersey in the Tour de France way back in 2003. But he's still only 31 years of age, and he's starting to come back to that sort of form that he had early in his career. This is a good move by Cook.
Well, it's almost a second coming for Cook. The other Australian who we haven't mentioned so far, and we haven't seen him recently, Matthew Goss. He was actually my pick before the start of the race, and unfortunately we haven't been able to spot him in the peloton. I saw him a lot earlier, but not in the last 30-odd kilometres, so I'm starting to think either Goss is withdrawn or he's in the second or third group down the road, so maybe not a great day for Goss today.
Well, this is the group that contains the big favourite. Pizzato is in here from Katusha. Gert Stegmans for Quick Step. We've got Dominic Rowland, the Canadian, the FDJ colours. He's also here. Thomas Vauclair, the French national champion. Jorgen Roelens from Omega Pharma Lotto, along with his team leader, Philippe Gilbert, and the team that is so well represented, and possibly the team to beat because of their numbers, BMC Racing. They've got Van Avermaet on the move, trying to go across to Chavanel, and they've got looked like 4 riders in that group with the big favourites.
Well, they said that before the start. They said that BMC will go with strength in numbers. Now, okay, they've got a couple of old stayers. George Hincapie, I mean, he knows the classics better than most. Probably one of the most experienced, maybe, certainly not at his best form that he was a few years back, but still strength in numbers, and it can play off. And the way the tactics are being played out now, you've got those 4 in front there, then you've got potentially Heyman and the other Rabobank rider going across. They're really going to have to put the hammer down in the peloton. Leopard Trek or possibly Cancellara himself is going to have to attack early. He wouldn't like to. In a perfect scenario, he'd like to wait until the last couple of cobbled climbs. But as you said, he hasn't got the support that he was hoping he'd have.
Chavanel was always going to be the strength for the Quick Step team. It's 50 seconds back to the main peloton. But just coming around the corner, it's Lars Bohm along with Edvald Bosenhagen. So it looks as if Clark, he cracked as they made their way up the Molenberg when Chavanel made his move, and he's starting to head back towards the main group. Back on board with the Quick Step team.
Well, you can see...
Come on, please come up. Want är det Italian Cancellara profitevoli situatie.
Wilfred Peters just giving instructions to the team, encouraging them, given the fact that Cancellara is isolated in this group. He doesn't have many teammates left around him. In fact, the other Australian that I haven't spotted in here as yet, Stuart O'Grady, who has been on some very good form that Baden Cook is starting to come across. He's almost over to this will be a group, the second group on the road with 3 Australians. Cook about to join Clark and Heyman.
Not a bad representation if you go by countries, is it? 3 Australians now in that next group on the road. And you can see here it's really just scrambling at the back. 1s and 2 attacks. Geraint Thomas there trying to sort of, well, really just covering again. Change of the wheel.
Gilbert with the rear wheel puncher. This is a problem for Philippe Gilbert because the convoy is so splintered because of the way the race is broken up. Mark Sargent is pushing him off. He'll just try and keep him calm. Jorgen Roelants is still in that main group of contenders, but you wouldn't expect them to drop Jorgen Roelants back because Roelants himself, a former Belgium national champion, is a contender. Philippe Gilbert is the sort of rider capable of getting back, but how much energy will he have spent doing so?
Yeah, that's right. Look, I think he'll get back, but that is the fine point. How much energy will it cost him? It's not great timing. Listen to the cars, they're on the horns. He's going to do his best. And a little bit of an adjustment of the back seat there by the looks of it.
Always got to check the brake after a puncher. Come on, David, surely you know that. You've done that.
Absolutely.
I've seen you.
It's a standard, isn't it? But the cameras are on him, so he'll get himself up there. Look, this will probably help his cause. There's not a real big chase on at the moment, but while that's happening, the gap out to 55 seconds. Chavanel going for it on his own, 44 kilometres to go.
2 to go before he gets to the top of the next climb, which is the Leeberg, as he's going across the Hague Hook, which is just one of the flat sections of the pavé. Worth just talking briefly about the difference between the pavé in Belgium versus the pavé in France. They're not as big and rough here, but they're uphill.
That's the difference, isn't it? Flanders is like Roubaix with hills. And they're narrow, very, very narrow. And even ones like this, at the end of 200 kilometres, they begin to hurt. It's not a steep incline, you can see that by the camera shot, but it starts to hurt. Gilbert now picking his way through the cars. As you said, he won't panic. He knows this road, he knows this race better than most as well. He'll just try and slowly get his way back on without raising the heart rate too much.
He looks comfortable as he rejoins. He does that almost with ease. Jorgen Roelants is the rider at the back of that group that I spoke about a moment ago. He didn't drop off the group for him, but he went back to try and assist him. I'm sure it won't be long before they get through to the front. In the red colours on the left-hand side of the screen, Manuel Kenziato, Italian new recruit across to BMC Racing. Good to see the Australian flag on the side of the road.
Well, we're seeing them more and more in Europe, aren't we? Certainly at the Tour de France, but the classics, they're getting out there as well. Another rider I think I saw in there, Alessandro Ballan, a previous winner, the Italian. He's amongst the action as well. So BMC, they have got the numbers, but Hushovd here really putting the pressure on now. Stegman's covering him.
And looking so strong, quick step with Tom Bonen coming to the front as well. And not just coming to the front, going off the front. Cancellara not far behind him.
I'm a little bit surprised, I've got to say. Bonen there, the attack. It's just, for a rider who knows this race so well, I just don't think it's the perfect time to attack. Or maybe he's thinking it's crunch time, and if he doesn't attack now, they won't get across to that break.
We won't have a problem, though, not getting across to that break, because it's his teammate, Sylvain Chavanel, that's up there. Now that he's forced the split, he's also got Pizzato sitting just behind him. Tom Bonen has got the advantage of saying, well, I've got Chavanel off the front. You chase him.
It's interesting, though. He's launched the attack, and Cancellara is willing to work and chase, so they've crossed the gap. I think they're a little bit nervous about this.
How quickly have they managed to go across to the group that includes Clark, Heyman and Cook? They're going to have to respond.
Well, they'll try and get on the wheel here. Clark, you can see he's gritting the teeth at the back there. He's losing the wheel, 2-3 lengths. His day could be done.
It's been a good day, though, for Simon Clark, the young Australian. He's only 24 years of age. He's had a difficult first 2 seasons in the professional ranks, not through his own fault, through problems with the team, with the sponsors not paying the wages and the UCI stopping them from racing. Across at Astana, he really has stepped up well this year. And as you mentioned earlier, not the ideal race for him. He was the late replacement But in races like Liège-Bastogne-Liège, Simon Clark in the future will hear a lot more of, as now Cancellara is starting to make a move.
Well, the Swiss Express, he is really putting the pressure on, and he is stringing them out one by one.
Well, the gap is opening up. It's only one bike length to Tom Bonen, but you can see the desperation in the face of the big Belgium. A two-time winner of this race. He went back-to-back 2005 and 2006. With the sprinting quality of Tom Bonen, he doesn't need to spend the energy to try and attack. And he's going to get caught behind the wheels here, and he's going to lose contact with Fabian Cancellara, who could be riding away. This might be crunch time. 41 kilometres to race. Nobody expected it to happen here.
Well, he has gone for it, and Bonen now, look at that, it's the hesitation when you're under pressure. That's what happens, you hesitate for a second. He got caught behind them, but then it opened back up. He had the chance to go, and he hesitated. Could this be the move? Could this be the move where Cancellara goes across to Chavanel and then goes on with the win? We've seen him do it before. When he launches that attack, they're going to scramble, and they're going to be chasing him now all the way.
Number one, Fabian Cancellara, the defending champion. He's got the race almost behind him. Just a couple left in front of him. As up the road, Sylvain Chavanel still off the front on his own. For Tom Bonen, that moment just before as he goes across the top of the Lieberg, it wasn't that he couldn't get past. He could get past. He didn't have the legs to go past.
Absolutely. He had him on his limit. Here's the leader, Sylvain Chavanel. 28 seconds. 28 seconds. He's just shut down a 40-second gap almost. Oh, this is interesting indeed. Cancellara, well, he's timed his move. 40 kilometres to go, though. It's a long way still.
It's 7 kilometres before they get to the next climb, which is the Valkenberg, a new climb in this year's Tour of Flanders from last year. It's been used in the past, but 5 additional climbs this year from last year. Unloading the food, maybe trying to get a little bit lighter. Does Chavanel kick the clutch in a little bit because he's going to be caught by Fabian Cancellara and save the legs so he can just try and hold on?
Yeah, look, I think it'd be silly if he just tried to ride on his limit. It's just whether or not he gets word quickly that the Swiss is coming across, and he's coming across fast. Here's the next group now. Bjorn Lukemans is there. Lars Boom. Pozzato also crossed the gap now. Filippo Pozzato.
So 32 seconds. That's up to the front of the race. That is up to Sylvain Chavanel. But this group now is a further few seconds behind that because Cancellara just rode away from them. They're at 40 seconds. It wasn't long ago that it was almost a minute the lead for Sylvain Chavanel. Fabian Cancellara's ability to close that gap down, have we seen it before?
Unbelievable.
I think we have, last year.
Incredible. He's just pulled, well, almost 20 seconds out of this second group, and he's done it in what, 2-3 kilometres. Unbelievable.
Well, not too far away from getting to the Valkenberg. It's Sylvain Chavanel off the front, and Fabian Cancellara's not far away from catching him.
Welcome back to our historic first ever coverage live of the Tour of Flanders, the Ronde van Vlaanderen, and 36 kilometres to go before they make it to the finish line. We have online Scott Sunderland, a former Australian professional and team director, on location in Belgium. Scotty, can you hear me? Can you see the race, and how do you think it'll unfold with Cancellara now looming and closing the gap on the leader, Sylvain Chavanel?
Yeah, mate, it's been an awesome day. The weather's been great. It's turned around. Instead of being the rain that was predicted, it's turned out to be quite a warm day and dry day. But what a ride, Cancellara. I mean, everything that the other team shouldn't be doing is playing into his hands. And I mean, Quick Step has done the best thing, have gone on the offensive in putting Chavanel in the front. And but yeah, Bonen just dropped the ball there, mate. He let his wheel go, and now Cancellara's going to catch him.
So it's bye-bye Bonin, do you think?
Yeah, I really don't see them coming back to him at the moment now. I think you can see there he's just taking a drink and that's starting to relax a little bit. Cancellara, he's going to pace himself until he just picks up Chavanel on the next climb, so that way he can just go storming past Chavanel without him giving him a chance to get on the wheel. And then I think that's the end of it. I think we're just going to see Cancellara time trial like he did last year right through to the finish.
Well, you know Cancellara perhaps better than most. You did coach him, if you like, or you were the team director at Saxo Bank for a couple of years with Cancellara. That's the way you see it, do you? Time trialling all the way, catching the Frenchman, Chavanel, and working his way to the finish line?
Yeah, sure. Like, I mean, you can see it here, that just the way he's taking it easy now. He's going to freshen up. He just knows what he has to do, and he's just going to... He's not even looking back, mate. He didn't even look back at Bonin there when he just went. He just put the hammer down, and yeah, I mean, he's done it before. He knows what he has to do, and he's a specialist time trial. He's been 3 times world champion and Olympic champion, so he knows exactly what it is to go against the clock and push himself to the limit. So I really see these guys now going to struggle to get the team or get the work necessary together to be able to bring back a guy like Cancellara.
All right, Scott, we'll come back to you later on in our coverage. 4 big climbs still to come. Let's go back to our commentators, Matthew Keenan and David McKenzie.
Scott Sunderland, the man that called the shots for Fabian Cancellara and Stuart O'Grady when they won Paris-Roubaix back in 2006 and 2007 respectively. He knows Cancellara's ability. He's seen him at his best, and he said a week ago when he saw him win E3 Harelbeke that Fabian Cancellara looks better than he did 1 year ago. And that's an ominous sign, and maybe they're racing for second.
Well, you could see there in the replay, Tom Bonin waving for the other riders to come through and work. The problem now is all of these guys here, they're on their limit trying to rotate turns, but Tom Bonin, he made the biggest mistake, and can I say, as far as it was an amateur's mistake, because he went on the attack. He had a teammate away up the road. He went on the attack. Cancellara rubbed his hands together behind him and then counter-attacked him across the top. That was it. That was the moment. And Bonin made the biggest mistake. He's a Belgian. He knows these roads. He knows this race so well.
The Garmin Cervelo car, they've got Peter Van Petegem on board, a former winner of this race.
Guys, I think Tyler and Hausler have to wait riding. I think Thor with 1 guys of Lotto have to ride full.
Van Petegem hoping that Lotto ride and start to do some of the chasing, but I think Omega Pharma Lotto are just about out of it. They're now on to the next climb, the Valkenburg, and this is the point that Sunderland was talking about. Cancellara has waited somewhat. He's just tried to recuperate a little bit as he's been going across. That for Sylvain Chavanel, he needs to get to the top of this before Cancellara catches him, because then we've got 7 kilometres to the next climb. It's much easier to get on the wheel of Fabian than on a flat stretch of road than it is on a climb like this one.
Well, you can see him there looking around, so he knows he's on him. He's just trying to have a breather. Look at the crowd.
30 seconds now, the gap back to that chasing group as Fabian Cancellara hasn't gone across with quite the conviction I expected to Sylvain Chavanel in the last kilometre or so. Maybe he is human. He's shown a few signs of weakness. This race isn't over. Chavanel still racing for the win, and just maybe his teammate Tom Bonin along with Lars Boom aren't quite out of it yet. Chavanel's done well to get to the top of the climb. Now he'll be on the wheel of the man that wears number 1.
Well, Chavanel, I take my hat off, because you think he was with Simon Clark and then the 2 other riders that went across. He dropped them on the cobbled climb. He's gone solo for a good part now. He's ridden a smart bike race, and as you said, now he's got a good 7 kilometres. He won't be pulling a single turn for Cancellara. He will try and sit on him. He's got his teammate here, Tom Moonen, at the back. But look at this. The big group now has crossed the gap, the remnants of the peloton.
Well, Philip Gilbert is coming across. Nick Noyens is there for the Saxo Bank team. So too Geraint Thomas, the British national champion. The problem is with the group swells is how do they get themselves organised? That's the next challenge.
Well, if you have a team like BMC, Cervelo, Garmin Cervelo there, and they have 2 or 3 riders that they can spend, suddenly there is a possibility that they can bring Cancellara back, because Where he will make most of his time, I would think, will be on the cobbled hills. But the Swiss ace, I mean, as we said, he's also a time trial specialist. So now for him, it's a time trial for 32 kilometres. He's got a 37-second gap. And so far, it's climbing. So they need to get organised fast.
This is Van Avermaet once again in the BMC Racing colours as Thomas Voeckler is still here, the French national champion. 37 seconds is the advantage for Fabien Cancellara, along with Sylvain Chavanel. But from what we've seen at the front, Chavanel isn't going to be doing any turns of pace. Just 3 climbs to come. The next climb is the 10 Boss. It's then up the Mer de Gettysburg, the most famous climb of the race, and the final climb, the Bosberg, at 12 kilometres still to go.
Well, I wonder if Cancellara will even look around at Chavanel to do some work. He knows he won't want to, but will he try and ask him at least? You can see here, he's just settling into his rhythm now. He'll think about the next 2 climbs. Voeckler there taking a drink. A little bit of work starting to happen here within this group, but it's all individual riders, so they need to get organised fast.
Kom op, hè. En als ze nu willen winnen, moeten ze meerijden. Allemaal, hè. Het is Chavanel nog alleen over met Cancellara.
Mark Sargent just giving instructions to the Omega Pharma Lotto team about Chavanel with Cancellara sitting on, not contributing. As Van Avermaet for BMC Racing, he has been so aggressive. He's been the one from that squad that's been marking all the moves, making the moves himself, and now he's doing the chasing. Surely he can't have that much left.
Well, he's trying to work, but you can see there, look, they're not single file. It should be absolutely strung out, and the gap has just gone up to 38 seconds. When they cross the road like that, it's game over. If they let it happen for another few kilometres, Cancellara will have too big a gap.
Last chance to take on some food and water for Fabien Cancellara, but it looks as if it's being missed. May not need it. It's gone out to 40 seconds for Chavanel. 3 climbs to come. They're going to be the most critical points. And we saw last year when it was in the same scenario, it was Fabien Cancellara along with Tom Bonen, and they got on the Mer van Gettysburg, and the split went there when Tom Bonen just had to try and follow the wheel, but he missed the move. As Fletcher now from Team Sky, he's trying to respond with Voeckler sitting behind him. The gap, though, with the inconsistency in the chase, just continues to blow out.
I think this is a wrong tactic by all of the other teams now, because you can see they've got Fletcher in there, they've got Hulshoft in there. They need to start, they need to put guys on the front rotating turns. Attacking will get them nowhere. No one is capable of riding across a 48-second gap. No 2 or 3 riders can do it. We saw how Cancellara went through a group of 5, left them behind. They tried to rotate turns and they went back to the peloton. So now they need to chase, and they need to chase in earnest, because if they keep attacking single, they won't get there.
Cancellara calling for a fresh water bottle, which should come from Shimano Neutral Service, with the team car not able to go through to the leading group because it's not out over that 1 minute mark as yet. And these roads, with them being so narrow, it's really difficult to get through to your leading rider.
Certainly is, and he wants that fluid. You could see he missed it at that prior feed station. He's put the hand up. He'll get a bottle from Shimano. Thank you very much. Chavanel, well, this will be the easiest part of the day for him. Doesn't have to fight the peloton.
It just gets more and more difficult from here for Sylvain Chavanel. The last Frenchman to win was Jackie Duron back in 1992 in what was a 220-kilometre breakaway. Chavanel doesn't have to do that today. What could Peter van Petegem, in fact I should say Wilfred Peters in the Quick-Step car, be telling him?
Niemand laten weg te rijden, hè. Dat Tom goed aan de muur geraakt. Dat kunnen we niet proberen.
Wilfred Peters, who's calling the shots for Quick-Step, used to be one of the great domestics of world cycling, riding in support of Johan Museo, who's one of the few men to have won this race on 3 occasions. That's the most this race has ever been won. It's a difficult race to master, as Geraint Thomas now is coming to the front for Team Sky doing chasing, along with BMC Racing. Kenziato is the man that sits in second position. It's then Michael Scarr, the big Swiss rider. This is exactly what you spoke about earlier on, Mackenzie.
Well, it's what they need to do. Look at BMC. We talked about them strength in numbers. I can still count 5 or 6 BMC riders. They've waited too long, though. Look at the gap, 58 seconds. They've only waited 3 to 5 kilometres, but it's enough to give Cancellara the lead that he needs now, because if he does get into trouble in that last couple of climbs, he's got a minute up his sleeve. So they're going to have to chase, and they're going to have to chase hard.
Almost at the next critical point. The next climb, it's the third last climb. It's the 10 boss. They're about to get to the bottom of it, and we'll see what Chavanel's got left and whether Cancellara even attempts to make the move. BMC Racing, strength in numbers extraordinary.
Unbelievable. I think they've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 riders in that group. Now, surely they have to chase. They have to spend 3 or 4 riders here in the next 10 kilometres. They have to. They just have to empty all their eggs, because 7 riders there, really it's not good enough. When you've got that many riders there and they've missed the move, Stijn de Volder, the Belgian national champion, is still in that second group.
About to make the turn to get on to the next climb, the 10 boss, as Fabian Cancellara still leading the charge with Chavanel breathing down his neck. Will he be starting to get nervous, Chavanel? He knows the next climb that is about to come.
Well, this break for Chavanel on the wheel of the Swiss ace, it'll do him well. I think he'll get over this climb. I think it'll be the Mur out of Gerardsbergen that'll test him. But it just would have given him that little bit of freshening up that he needed, because he was on his limit for a while. Here we go.
Chavanel just trying to hold on. His best ever result in the Tour of Flanders, 24th position. It was 1 year ago when he was riding as the chief domestique for Tom Bonen. He came across to Quick-Step because he wants to win a classic. This is a big opportunity. No move at this point, Fabian Cancellara. Looks as if he's content and maybe, as you alluded to, waiting for the Mur.
Well, you can see, arm up. He's got his team car now. He'll be happy they've got up there.
Leopard Trek, a new team on the circuit this year. They came into the season before they'd even raced as the world's #1 ranked team. It's almost a replica of Saxo Bank, minus Bjarne Riis calling the shots from the car. It's Kim Anderson on this occasion as Quick-Step supporting Chavanel, waiting for the top of the climb to take on the water. Given that Cancellara was taking water bottles on as he was making his way up the climb, it's a clear indication that there's a lot of petrol left in that big tank.
There's a lot of petrol left, and he's refueling it at the same time. Yeah, certainly if you're in the hurt box, you don't take fluid or food when you're on the climb. Meanwhile, BMC, they're chasing, but they're not making much of a dent. Alessandro Ballan, you can see the World Championship strip on his sleeves there. They'll be trying to do their utmost to drag Cancellara back. But they're really doing it tough. They've got to do it a bit harder than this.
This is Van Avermaet once again that is doing the chasing. George Hencappy sitting in second position. Marcus Burkhardt just behind him. At the very least, as they go across the top of the climb, George Hencappy is going to equal the record today for the most ever finishes in the Tour of Flanders at 16. It's been a long career. He first rode this race in Motorola colours back in 1994. I'd only just finished school. Into the team Garmin Cervelo car.
Oh, Tyler, no riding. You are told, do not ride, do not ride. Just sit in, rest as much as you can. Do not ride. If it's a sprint for third, it's a sprint for third. If it's for first, it's first. But no riding. Just sit in, let the other teams do the work. No more riding. We're just surviving for the sprint now.
That's a fair indication of the atmosphere within the race. Jonathan Vaughters, in an interview during the week, he was asked the question, how do you beat Fabian Cancellara? A sniper, perhaps, was his tongue-in-cheek response. He's called it. Garmin Cervelo not working. They're taking the risk. They might be racing for third, hoping the others do the chasing. Can anybody catch Fabian Cancellara? The Tour of Flanders live on SBS for the first time ever. 2 men away. It's the defending champion, Fabian Cancellara, who's been joined by Sylvain Chavanel. Just moments ago, the team cars of Leopard Trek and Quickstep came together with Kim Anderson of Leopard Trek asking the question to Wilfred Peters, the director sportive for Sylvain Chavanel. Why can't he work? Get him to do a turn of pace. The response from Wilfred Peters, he's too strong. It's a breakaway of 60 kilometres. What can they possibly do? Can Chavanel hold on? Can he beat Fabian Cancellara?
Well, unbelievable. And I mean, I tell you what, you've got to cheat almost asking Chavanel to work, because everybody knows Cancellara. The pre-race hype, it was all about their racing for second place. Chavanel, in fact, he was out there on his own. It was Cancellara who joined him. He has a right to sit on now, I believe, with only 2 main climbs to go. For Chavanel, if he can hang on, well, he's got an opportunity to win. You can see now he's taking in the food. This is probably his last chance to try and get some food, some drink in. He'd be counting down the kilometres, 22 kilometres to go. 59 seconds is the gap. It's been hovering 55, 1 minute and 5. But Cancellara now, he's coming towards Gerardsbergen and that famous climb. This is where I think he'll try and offload him.
It's where Fabian Cancellara made his move last year to shake his breakaway companion, who was wearing Quickstep colours, but it was Tom Bonen. That climb tops out with 16 kilometres to race, and it's approximately a 1.5 kilometre climb when you include the journey up through the town itself. Just a couple of instructions there to Chavanel about the next couple of corners, which is still to come. He's trying to take on as much food as he possibly can, but he'll just be taking on squeegees, light food, because you send any solid food to the stomach and it'll take blood away from the legs. That's the last thing he needs to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they're approaching now Gerardsbergen. They'll come through the town, and as you said, they'll just slowly begin to climb. First, it'll be on, well, what we'd call smooth road, and then it'll go to cobbles, and it'll just get steeper and steeper and steeper. And I can guarantee you there'll be a massive crowd up the climb. But here, you can see the riders, the peloton. Look, it's still a big group, isn't it? Left, but BMC now have dropped back slightly. They really do need to empty a couple of their riders here. I mean, they should be just chasing out. I know it's easier to say sitting back watching, but there's no point going to the finish line with 4 or 5 BMC riders in that peloton sprinting for the finish. They really should be emptying 2 or 3 now, and at least they have a chance still to win the bike race.
Now, Fabian Cancellara wearing number 1, Chavanel just behind him. 3 of his teammates still back in that chasing group. 2 more climbs to come. We're live all the way through to the finish. The next one is the famous Muur van Gettysbergen, which has actually got 3 names. The Muur van Gettysbergen. That's one of them, which simply translates as the Wall of Gettysbergen. The other one is Kapelmuur, which is the chapel wall, because there's a chapel at the top of the climb. And the French, well, they're just a little bit different. They call it the Muur de Gramont.
Yes, it's really on that border of the Flemish French-speaking area. It's a beautiful part of the world. And very, very famous. Plenty of tourists come across, in fact, and ride all of these famous climbs. People want to see how tough they are, challenge themselves, but Cancellara, he is just zoning in on these last 2 climbs. You can see hand in the pocket as well. He's got to get some food in. He can't get too complacent here. He still has to do everything right to win the bike race.
This is Michael Scarr from BMC Racing that is doing the chasing. And it might be just worth at this point noting the difference in the different wheel selections. You can see Michael Scarr, who stands at, I think it's 194 centimetres, weighs more than 80 kilograms. He's got the old-fashioned wheels, which they're not quite as rigid as the deep dish carbon wheels that Luca Paolini is using behind him. And those carbon wheels, they're a bit more prone to puncture because they are so much more rigid. And with the extra weight of the bigger rider, he's taken the old traditional wheels. But at the front of the race with Fabian Cancellara and Sylvain Chavanel, Cancellara's got the deep dish carbon wheels, while Chavanel's got the more traditional wheels. And it was at E3 Hadelbaker that Cancellara had 3 punches and a bike change because of that wheel decision. Anything can still happen, but we don't want it to come down to that.
No, absolutely, and a good point, because we've seen in the earlier part of our telecast riders crashing off the road, on the road, flat tyres, so anything can happen. Of course, being out in front, you're really out of harm's way in terms of a peloton, but I noticed Tyler Farrar, the sprinter, is there in that group. Here is the beautiful town of Gerardsbergen.
Making their way into the famous town, Wilfred Peters giving the encouragement to Sylvain Chavanel. This is possibly the most critical point of the race. I think the instructions, David, might be, hold on.
Hang on for dear life. You can see the road, they come down into town, it drops down slightly. They go across the bridge up here in the next 200-300 metres, and then they start to slowly wind their way through town and up the climb and onto the main part of the climb itself. Look at the people already in the town here.
The Leopard Trek team car that just came up to Fabian Cancellara on that occasion looked like a handshake. I didn't see a water bottle or any food go across. I might have missed it, but I certainly didn't see it. It looked as if it was, okay, brother, time to go.
Good luck. And offload him whenever you're ready. You can see the road starts to narrow now. They go through the shops.
And up until the late 1950s, this part of the course was actually cobbled as well. And then they found the turn up past the old chapel to get some cobbles back into it. You can see the line of Flanders off on the left-hand side, the flag, but, well, they're going to have to cheer a Frenchman if they want a rider from one of their teams to win. This is Frédéric Goudon from FDJ, still fighting at the front. 43 seconds, it's starting to come down. But I think that's because Cancellara has just taken the foot off the gas a little bit, so as he can put everything into this climb and try and get rid of Chavanel, and then he'll seriously open up.
Yeah, look, and he'd want to do that because if he hit the bottom of the climb absolutely on his limit, it'd be tough. Look at the crowd as they go around the corner here. Here we go.
Left onto the cobbles, then they turn right and the real climbing begins. The team cars, they cannot go up the climb. They shoot off straight, they do a deviation around the hill itself and pick them up on the other side. It hits a maximum gradient of 16%. It's a difficult climb, it's crunch time for Sylvain Chavanel. Can the Frenchman possibly hold on?
Look at the gap, it is coming down 26 seconds and it's coming down fast. Cancellara, whether or not he's timing this or not, we won't know until about halfway up, but there's always a surge from the peloton on this climb because it is such a crunch part of the race.
And the move is coming from Rabobank. This is Sebastian Langeveld that's come to the front. Pizzato just behind him. We've got Philippe Gilbert coming into the fray as well. He was one of the favourites. Nick Noyens is still there. Balan's a former winner. Fletcher is in contention. It's a long way from over. Maybe Tom Bonen can get back as well.
This is incredible. 13 seconds, 12. It's coming down almost a second, every second, in fact. Cancellara, whether or not he will know this. Is he in trouble? Is the Swiss ace, is he finally proving to us that he's human? Everyone picked him. 11 seconds. The gap is still coming down. They've still got a lot of the climb to go.
That's the deviation for the team car. They're now onto the most difficult part of the climb. Langeveld has come to the front. Gilbert is in the prime position, sitting there in second spot. Chavanel now just trying to hold on, but the gap, well, it's down to about 10 seconds. Cancellara, he hasn't sealed it. Maybe he's showing some mercy. He's showing us that he's human. 475 metres, almost 20% the maximum gradient.
Oh, hear the roar. And look at this. This is what I love about cycling. Just when you think it's done and dusted, we were fooled. I'm sure you at home were fooled. They're on the back wheel of Cancellara and Sylvain Chavanel. Now we have a real race on our hands.
And it's Gilbert that's done the damage. The big Belgium, he's coming across. He's from the French-speaking part of the country. Chavanel is still there behind Fabian Cancellara. Balan, the former world champion, he's starting to return to the form of a few years ago. Fletcher is there, Tom Bonen is there. Langeveld is starting to lose contact after having done so much of the chasing. And Cancellara, he can't quite crack them. And Chavanel is still just holding on. But Gilbert, all of a sudden, is starting to shape up as possibly the strongest. About to go past the pub, and then it's past the chapel, and the others are starting to say their prayers.
Cancellara, he's tried to launch again now, but I think it's a bit too late because they're pretty much on him. And it's still got more of the climb. Chavanel, he's holding on. Gilbert also to Ballan, he's going with it. It's all happening now. Fletcher, Boonen.
Huge crowd at the top of the climb, 5 riders at the top of the climb as Cancellara goes over the top. Chavanel has managed to hold on. All of a sudden, this race has turned on its head. Gilbert has closed down. Ballan is there. It looks like it might be De Gent or Lukemans from Vacansoleil. We'll wait until we get down a little bit closer. Gilbert wants to go on with it, but there's only 4 kilometres to the Bosberg, which is the final climb. I'm on the edge of the seat.
Well, what can happen now is you see those 4 or 5 out in front. Cancellara will not want to rotate turns. He's just spent 20-odd kilometres on the front. So Chavanel, he'll be tight. He won't want to work. Ballan is there. He may want to work. Gilbert may want to work. You'll have that group at the back. I mentioned Farrar, and we mentioned the team director, Valdez. He said, don't work. If we sprint for second, we sprint for second. Sit back and wait. Can this play into the hands of Garmin Cervelo? Because it can all regroup suddenly so quickly. We saw it there, Cancellara. A 30 to 40 second gap closed within basically the space of 1.5 kilometres.
Hats off to Philippe Gilbert. He's done the damage he's come across. And also, what about the performance of BMC Racing? They've done the chasing. They were prepared to risk blowing up. They're not racing for third. Unlike Garmin Cervelo with the call from Jonathan Vortas, they're racing for first, and they've got Ballan, the winner from 2007, in the box seat.
Well, he knows what it's like to cross the line in Flanders, being the first rider. And there he is. You can see, we just saw a glimpse there in the background, and you can see the second group, and there's a third group probably 20 to 30 seconds back. Ballan now, he's committed. He can suddenly sense that he has a good chance in this year's edition. And he's opened up a gap, in fact, so he really wants to push things along. Gilbert, this last climb is going to be interesting, isn't it? The Bosberg, it comes at 11.8 kilometres. Will Cancellara try and launch again? Has he got anything left in the tank? Did he mistime his effort up the Mur?
Well, the Bosberg is one of the easiest climbs on the course if you were just to climb them individually. The problem is it comes after 246 kilometres of racing as Hencappy is going across with Geraint Thomas. Wouldn't that be a surprise result? If George Hencappy could finally get the win in Flanders, it will be his 16th finish in the race. If anything, he's got experience on his side.
Wouldn't it be a fairy tale? And you've said it there, he's got experience, that's for sure. Geraint Thomas, the young Englishman, and look, he packs a really good finish. He's the type of guy that could attack in the final couple of kilometres, but Hencappy gets across here. If Ballan can see him coming, it'd be worth his while to sit up and wait.
This is the leading group. Fabian Cancellara in the colours of Leopard Trek just going through to the front. Ballan in the red colours. Bjorn Lukemans in the blue colours of Vacansoleil. Philippe Gilbert sitting in second last position, recuperating just a fraction. He knows other riders are coming across. He knows he's got the Bosberg to come. And at the back of the group, it's Sylvain Chavanel still at the front for Quick-Step. But he spent a lot of the time in the slipstream of Fabian Cancellara. That's the challenge of being the race favourite. What can they tell Gilbert now?
Opletten van Ballan, dat lijkt me de man.
I think he was telling him to watch the move of Alessandro Ballan on the Bosberg. This is a climb that in 1989 and 1991 was the launching plaid for Edwig van Hooijdonk, who ended up with the nickname Eddie Bosberg because this was the climb that he launched his move on.
Well, you can see there, they were looking around to see where that next group was, and they're looking for Tom Boonen. And, of course, Geraint Thomas now is dragging them back up. So now we're going to have, almost a group of 10 or so riders, or more, in fact, as they come towards the Bosberg, and we're on it now.
And it's Gilbert that is the first to make the move. It's an 980 metre climb. Lukemans is responding, so too Cancellara, but the gap is starting to open up, and it's Gilbert that's doing the damage.
Oh, this is going to be a tough one. It might be one of the easier ones, but they've gone from the very bottom. Cancellara, is he able to go with it? No, he's in trouble. I think he's in trouble. Look at him, he's dropping back. Balan now is forced to chase.
It was the Omega Pharma Lotto team that told Gilbert that Balan was the danger on this climb, and they've marked it absolutely right, because Balan is the man that is doing the chasing. I had the opportunity to talk to Heinrich Hausler at the Tour of Qatar, and this was the race that he wanted to win. Who did he most fear? Philippe Gilbert, because when he says he's on target, he normally lands the spot. As number one, Fabian Cancellara, he's more than human. He looks as if he's cracked, and he might be gone. This could be a race between Gilbert and Balan.
Unbelievable. He is human. I thought there were too many tipsters picking the Swiss ace. Everybody is human, and this race can produce some brilliant rides, but this rider here, Philippe Gilbert, even then I thought he's attacked too soon at the very bottom, but he's opened up the gap. Balan is about 50 odd metres behind him. Let's look to see him come around that corner now in the background. So he's opened up a bigger gap, 11 kilometres to go. Can he time trial all the way to the finish?
Yes, he can. Kop van der Estrade at top of the course, head of the race. It's Philippe Gilbert that is leading the charge. No shortage of support at the finish line. It's Balan that's in second position. The Belgians went to their federal election some 300 days ago. It's a country that is divided between the French-speaking and the Dutch-speaking. They still don't have a government in place. Philippe Gilbert is the one man that manages to cross between the cycling fraternity with those two parts of the country. Maybe today he can unite Belgium.
Well, it needs to happen. But Philippe Gilbert, he's going to push all the way. This is going to be such a battle, because you can see it's one rider, then it's another one rider, then there's two riders. Then you've got Cancellara here.
Stav Scherling sitting on his wheel. A man that used to ride for Cofidis. He's now down to one of the smaller teams, the Willems team, one of the wild cards. Good result for them to be at the front. But it's 14 seconds, 13 seconds to group number 4. I'm assuming that's Fabian Cancellara.
Oh, this is going to be one of the greats, one of the classics. The way they're going to fight it out to the finish now. Will this group, well, will these ones and twos of 4 or 5 riders, will they all group together? Looks like they might catch Balan here, and this could really stop Gilbert's race at the front. Unbelievable. Chavanel, he's not done yet. How good is the Frenchman?
Fabian Cancellara is coming back. Stav Scherling is the man that sits on his wheel and holds onto his wheel. Chavanel now is working.
This is incredible. They're all going to come together, just as I thought, and this could be danger for the leader in Gilbert. He's got just a short gap. It could be good, it could be bad, because now they might regroup and they'll hesitate. They won't want to work together, they won't cooperate. For him, he leaves everything out on the road. He just empties the tank.
He's gone under the banner, 10 kilometres, 10 seconds. Look across the shoulder, he'll see a chasing group of 5 that are trying to get themselves organised. Chavanel now goes to the back. It's Scherling that it's just in front of him. It's then Fabian Cancellara, Bjorn Lukemans in the blue and yellow colours of Vacan Soleil. And the former world champion, Alessandro Balan. He's back.
He is back, that's right. Scherling, I raced with him on the same team, in fact, for a season. Just one of those riders that was always there in the top 20, top 30, but for the fans watching it, you'd never know who he was. No one really looks at 20th, 30th place, but he's been around for such a long time. He's ridden a couple of Tour de France's.
Kom on, makker. Je zet de super man van baas. Je zet super. Kom on.
Nothing but encouragement from Mark Sargent and Herman Frieson for their man off the front, Philippe Gilbert. If you were watching the World Championships in Geelong on October the 3rd of last year, Philippe Gilbert, he didn't win the race. It was won by Thor Hushovd, but it was Gilbert that made the race. He and Cadel Evans were the two most aggressive in the race, and you could argue that Philippe Gilbert was the strongest. But doesn't always work out that the strongest wins the race. Tactics play a key part, and he's played his hand almost perfectly today. He's got 9 kilometres to race, but not much time to play with.
Well, he can't look around. He has to go for it. I take my hat off to him because this is what you love to see in the Ronda. He will have the respect of the fans today, that is for sure, no matter what happens. And it's not over if you're watching this and you're thinking they're going to catch him. We've seen before in these races in Paris-Roubaix, in Flanders, they get within 50 metres and they don't close the gap. So it's still, anything can happen.
If the gap just stays at this point, we'll go back into the Omega Pharma Lotto car for a moment.
Allee, kom aan. Beetje profiteren daar. Kom aan, man. De tijdrit van uw leven nu. Kom aan.
He just looked across the shoulder. 7 seconds for Philippe Gilbert off the front, going back to that group. Who can possibly win the sprint from that group? A lot of energy has been spent for Philippe Gilbert. He's not the best sprinter, but he's not bad.
Well, they're all spending energy, but the thing is, Skerlinks is sitting on the back. He rides for one of the smaller teams. They're not going to expect him to work. Frédéric Gudon, the Frenchman, we mentioned him earlier. Paris-Roubaix, a similar thing happened. They caught the lead rider as they entered the velodrome. Gudon had been able to sit on, and he won it in a sprint. Here's the catch.
Gilbert surrenders. He realised that he was going to get caught if he continued to persist, so he's going to need to save some energy. What happens now? What I like about this, there's no team with more than one rider in the front group. It's one-on-one. This is classic bike racing.
Oh, it's brilliant, isn't it? It's Flanders at its best, but there's another group in the background, and I think they might close up as well. Here, and there's a BMC rider in there as well. Geraint Thomas is there. Juan Antonio Fletcher is also there. This is going to now make it very interesting.
If this group comes back, Geraint Thomas is the sort of guy that can attack this group and get off the front. Shane Bannon, the general manager of Green Edge, said Geraint Thomas is his dark horse because of his ability to clip off the front at the end of the race. Olympic Games gold medalist in the team's pursuit, Geraint Thomas, could be his day to arrive.
Well, he's got the teammate there in Fletcher, also very handy. What an incredible race we've just had.
Tom Bonin is back in contention as well. He's been sitting on a lot of the wheels. He's the quickest of the sprinters in this group. This is going to become a tactical affair. George Hencappy, 16th time finishing the race. Can he finally get the win? Langeveld is there for Rabobank. 2 in there for Sky with Fletcher and Geraint Thomas. As we look at the back of the group, number 74, George Hencappy. He's been following the wheels patiently. He's got Balan at the front for company.
Well, gee, you could throw these numbers up in the air. Anyone in this group can win the bike race. Unbelievable. Tom Boonen, probably on paper you'd say he's the quickest rider there, but at the end of 256 or 260 odd kilometres, it really doesn't come down to who is the quickest, it's who has got the most left in the tank, as Balan now tries for an attack.
When he won in 2007, it was from a small group. There was only 2, in fact. It was with Leif Hoster that finished in 2nd position on that occasion. Balan, he made this sort of move when he won the world title in Varese in 2008. He waited for the moment for the others to look at each other, and then he pounced. And once again, responding, it's Gilbert, followed by Sebastian Langeveld. And then Nick Noyens, Saxo Bank colours in 4th position. Another man that's in good form.
Well, all of these riders here, I think whoever can have the easiest ride coming into the finish will have the most legs. Just think for a minute about Fabian Cancellara. Suddenly he's taken a bit of a back seat. He's been out there all day. Has he got one last big effort left in him? He's not chasing any of these moves. You can see he's sitting back. He's just trying to wait as much as he can, conserve as much as he can. Every time these riders react, remember, it's been a long day. They've been out there for 6 or so hours. It hurts the legs.
Chavanel marks the move of Nick Noyens in the Saxo Bank colours, and Nick Noyens, he spent the last couple of seasons at Rabobank and he didn't perform. He didn't live up to the expectations. He didn't live up to the salary. He's on a new team and he's found a new pair of legs. Is Geraint Thomas now the British national champion? Don't call him British, call him Welsh. He gets offended if you think he's British. He's the Welshman. He's at the front of the race.
Well, he's got the national champion's jersey on. Chavanel, though, marking him 5 kilometres to go.
Nick Noyens of the Saxo Bank team, he was formerly with Quickstep, so he knows the tactics that team will play. Juan Antonio Fletcher, he's been on the podium here once before. He's been on the podium 3 times at the Paris-Roubaix. He's a rare beast for a Spaniard, but he was actually born in Argentina, and his bedroom abutted a cobblestone alleyway, and he used to hear the click and clack go across the pavé, and he's never lost the dream of winning across the stones.
No, you're dead right. And it is unique for a Spanish rider to be at the head of affairs here late in the race. Cancellara now at the front, Boonen right next to him. 2 of the big stars, 2 of the big favourites. Who would have thought 20 minutes ago we thought Cancellara was riding away with it. Suddenly now we've got a group of 10 or more riders that are going to fight it out. Will it be a late attack?
It's Sebastian Langevel that's made the move. Fletcher is responding. I think all of us could be forgiven for thinking that Cancellara was going to ride away. His former director, Scott Sunderland, he thought it was sewn up. So too did Wilfred Peters. He was concerned about Chavanel working with Cancellara. And now we're seeing Fabian show signs of weakness. He almost cracked on the Bosberg. It's Langevel, the Dutchman from Rabobank, that is trying to ride off the front. And if it comes down to a sprint, Tom Boonen, he's been following the wheels, and George Hincapie, I haven't seen him do a turn of pace at the front yet either.
George Hincapie, the American, oh gee, it'd be great to see him win. Cancellara is trying for one last effort. To me, this says he knows he can't win it in a sprint. He has to go on an attack, and he is. He's forcing.
Once again, it's Chavanel that is marking the move. Nick Noyens is in 3rd position as Tom Boonen is sitting on the wheels, letting the others do the chasing. 3 kilometres to race.
Look at the damage that Cancellara has done, but he's dragged 2 with him. Chavanel, what a brilliant ride by the Frenchman. Probably ride of the day.
And Nick Noyens is only just holding on. How ironic would it be if it comes down to a 2-up sprint between Chavanel and Cancellara? But the Belgian from Saxo Bank has managed to hold on only just.
Unbelievable. But now they have to try and rotate turns. Look at it. It's just splintered here at the back here. Each rider is fending for himself.
Geraint Thomas in the white colours of Team Sky, as Gilbert is also trying to go across. Ballan chasing in the red colours. Fabian Cancellara is on the offensive. Will Chavanel come through this time? No, he won't. He's sitting on the wheel again. Everybody's still intimidated by number 1.
Well, I'd almost think that Chavanel, he wants to do as little as possible. I know it's a tough tactic to pull, but if he keeps pulling here, he still can be beaten by the 2 riders with him. But he's got Tom Boonen, one of the fastest riders in the back. Boonen obviously should be sitting on the back. This can play into both of their hands.
2 kilometres as we see Chavanel is working turns now. He sits in 2nd position. Nick Noyens just behind him. And Chavanel is calling Cancellara through. He gives him the little hand sling.
It's all the bluff game though. Chavanel wants to get Cancellara to work, so he puts the hand out. It's a tactic riders play all the time. Chavanel needs to try and use these 2 riders up.
The advantage for this leading group of 3 is back in that chasing group. Tom Boonen is sitting on, and that's going to play on the mind of the men that are chasing. They're going to be concerned about taking Big Tomica to the finish and in contention for the sprint. These 3 now might survive. It could still be a battle between Chavanel and Cancellara as Geraint Thomas is doing the chasing. He's thinking about the Spaniard, Juan Antonio Fletcher.
Well, Fletcher there just trying to nick off the front. Boonen jumped on his wheel. Let's see if we can get a shot of them in the background. Cancellara, he's found his legs again. There's Fletcher now trying to chase. It's desperate. They're coming into the kilometre to go.
It's Fletcher that's chasing. Tom Boonen is sitting on his wheel under the red kite. 1 kilometre to race. Chavanel, he looks across the shoulder. Nick Noyens, he might be in the best position. He's just got rid of the water bottle. He sits in 3rd place. He's got to play the cool hand. It's a difficult sprint. The last 100 metres is slightly uphill.
They can't wait for too long. They've got to start to move soon, but you see the hesitation at the back. I think these 3 riders might have it. Nick Noyens, can he take it for Saxo Bank? How ironic would that be?
Tom Bonan now is trying to go across. He's got a little bit of distance on one Antonio Fletcher. Chavanel is looking over the shoulder. He's maybe just hoping that Tom Bonan can make it. Cancellara starts to open out a long way from home. Fabian looking to go back to back. Noyens is on the wheel. Chavanel looks as though he's starting to lose ground as Tom Bonan is still in contention. 6 hours of racing. Noyens is going over the top. It's going to be a Belgium victory. He's got 50 to race. Chavanel still challenging. Nick Noyens takes out the Ronda. It's Chavanel in second. Cancellara third. Noyens celebrates. Tom Bonan in fourth. What a finish.
Oh, unbelievable. Nick Noyens, who would have picked him before the start of the race? An incredible finish. Cancellara, he had no choice then but to jump early out of that corner. It was just a drag race in the end. And Nick Noyens, the Belgian for Saxo Bank.
Well, he's here with good form. He had a big win 2 weeks ago when he managed to win the Doors van Vlaanderen, but this one that blows that away. The 95th edition of the Ronde van Vlaanderen, the biggest win in the career of Nick Noyens. Saxo Bank have gone back to back, but it wasn't Fabian Cancellara because he's at a new team. Bjarne Riis, he's done it again.
Well, he would be just rubbing his hands together. I don't think Noyens can even believe it. He's almost in shock himself. He's Fabian Cancellara. He's just wondering what could have been. It all fell apart for him rapidly. Here's the sprint for the peloton. There's still a decent group left.
It's Hondo in the colours of Lamprey as we see Bernard Eisel get into the thick of the action. Tyler Farrar in the centre in the Garmin Cervelo colours is going to lead them across. 1:23 behind the winner of the race. And Dominic Rowland looked as if he was in there for FDJ, the Canadian. That's a good performance. Nick Noyens, he was second here back in 2008. He's the winner in 2011.
Well, unbelievable. He's just still in shock, I think. He can't believe what's unfolded. I don't think any of us can believe what's unfolded.
In 2008, it was Stein de Volder that won off the front on his own. And Nick Noyens came through in the sprint for second place, head-to-head with one Antonio Fletcher. And he finished second on that occasion. He's the winner this time around, Fabian Cancellara. What a gallant defence. He was the strongest, but he wasn't first, and that's bike racing.
That's right, he wasn't strongest at the right time of the race, was he? But he attacked, he had the confidence. I think so much confidence was around Cancellara and the team. Everyone was talking about, I don't think I've ever seen a race where they're saying everyone's fighting it out for second place.
Well, the drama of the final 20 kilometres, it looked as if it really was just going to be a case of can Sylvain Chavanel hold on? That's what I thought it was. Scott Sunderland thought it was as well, and he's got a lot more experience than I have. So I don't feel too bad about thinking Fabian was going to ride away. We got a much better result, though, in terms of the entertainment value and the beauty of the Ronda. It was on display.
Well, as we said, it's just one of the greats, isn't it? And the way it unfolded in the end. I mean, you're dead right. We were saying, can Chavanel hang on for the final 3 climbs? And then we just saw that gap dramatically drop down. Let's just take another look at the replay as they come around that final corner there. And Cancellara, I think he saw Tom Bonan coming up to his wheel and he decided, right, it's time to jump.
How cool was Nick Noyens, though? He was prepared to run the risk of getting caught in pursuit of winning. He rolled the dice, he came up the winner.
He certainly did. Let's just watch the replay, though, as they go towards the line. Chavanel, well, Noyens, he had the jump, but Chavanel was coming at him and he got stopped. His run got stopped, didn't it? Close to the line. But I think Noyens, he timed it to perfection.
We heard a couple of times in the race from the Saxo Bank team car the calmness of Bjarne Riis. There's been a lot of debate throughout the season so far about race radio. I think the calmness today came into play and had an impact on who the winner was. It was the whole team working together on the road and in the car.
Well, it just goes to show you cannot discount Bjarne Riis, the team director. He's left, half of his team have left, and he's still won the Ronda. His strongest part of the team have left, and he's still managed to win it.
95th edition of the Ronde van Vlaanderen, and for the 67th time, it's a Belgian that takes the win. Bjarne Riis enjoying the victory.
Quick. Damn it!
Tristan Hoffman driving the car almost pulled Bjarne Riis's head off. Got no hair left, nothing to hold on to.
Great job.
Well, that is what it's about.
At the end of last season, a lot of people were saying that Saxo Bank is decimated. They won't be the team they used to be. A lot of credit has got to go to Bjarne Riis. What about that for a win by Nick Noyens? Nick Noyens going out the winner. It's Chavanel in second position, Cancellara third, Tom Bonen in fourth place. Langeveld fifth, George Hincapie for the 16th time making it across the finish line in sixth position. Lukemans in seventh, Scherlinks in eighth position. Mike Tomalaris, SBS, first time covering the Ronde van Vlaanderen, and a classic edition.
Come on, Sibby. Shit!
Yeah, great call, Matty Keenan. Great call, Dave McKenzie. And an unlikely victory for many pundits out there, but what was the most unpredictable race? Cancellara, Gilbert, Chavanel. In the end, a Belgian, Nick Noyens, winning for Saxo Bank, and you saw the reaction there from Bjarne Riis, an absolute legend. Don't go away. We'll be back to analyse what we've just seen right here on SBS. You're watching the Tour of Flanders. Yes, a hometown victory there for Nick Noyens in what is the biggest result of his career. And Dave McKenzie joins me now to analyse what we've just seen. That was an incredible race, Dave. There were so many ups and downs, and just when it looked like Cancellara would pull away and win, especially when he was with Chavanel on the base of the Muir there, it all came together again. How did you see it all?
Well, look, we'd all thought that, hadn't we? We'd been told Cancellara was going to win. The world's cycling media said everyone's racing for second place, and but plenty of riders had different ideas, but no one thought Nick Noyens could win. And in the end, there's the peloton now is so big, and there's so many good riders in the peloton. And Nick Noyens, it's not like he's a nobody, but certainly no one would have picked him today to win. I could just about guarantee you that. What a brilliant ride by him in the end. And Cancellara, look, to me, he simply ran out of gas. There was one point where I thought he started calling for a bin, and his team car wasn't there, and he had to get it from the Shimano car. And I thought, he's absolutely on his limit here, and this is a crunch point. And in the end, it proved it. I mean, they closed a 45-second gap literally on the Muir in, a 1 kilometre, 1.5 kilometres. They closed a 45-second gap. It was amazing.
It sure was amazing, and I've got to give my congratulations to a viewer from Brisbane, Nick O'Donnell, who picked the winner. Now, there weren't too many times during the course of the coverage that you actually named Nick Noyens. He was hiding in the peloton for the most part.
Yeah, look, he was, and he was always there, but he was hiding. We mentioned Baden Cook, his teammate, in fact, and
Cookie had a good ride.
He had a great ride, really, and he played the role perfectly. And but Noyens, look, Belgian, knows the roads well, and played it smart, and probably was able to hide a little bit. A lot of the favourites, the big favourites, watching each other, so he was able to sit back and let them play it out, and then in the end he played the perfect role at the finish.
Look, this is a race Tom Bonen knows very, very well, but I was a little bit curious at the way He used his tactics, some unlike Bonin-type tactics today.
Well, it was silly racing. When he launched that first attack, he basically almost acted as a teammate to Fabian Cancellara when he launched that attack, when Chavanel was up the road on his own. So he's got his real teammate away. He launches an attack, Cancellara follows, and then counter-attacks him, and then that set that break up. In the end, OK, Cancellara got brought back, but, gee, he nearly ruined it. And it was such an amateur move by Bonin, and he should have known better. I think he got too excited, and in the end, look, it still nearly paid off for him at the end, and his teammate Chavanel. Chavanel, brilliant ride by him today. He almost snatched victory. You saw he got a little bit balked in the last 100 metres there, but great riding by Chavanel.
OK, we can now cross to Nick Noynes and also Fabian Cancellara, first and third in this year's Tour of Flanders.
I think the change of team was really important for me. They gave me immediately a lot of confidence. Of course, there's the person of Bjarne Riis, but also the other people, sport directors and all the staff, the riders. I just feel really good in the group, and for me that's the most important thing to perform.
Thanks very much. Congratulations. One question also for the big favourite of the day. Third on the podium, Fabian Cancellara. You were so close. What's your first reaction to what happened after an unbelievable race with the breakaway and then getting caught at the wall and then the finish, the sprint?
Yeah, even when you're super strong, you're beatable. I think that's I knew it always since on the beginning from the start. But I think on the end, I mean, we tried with the team. We done the max what we could. In the end, I mean, on the muur until to the finish line, I mean, it was just like I was so dead on the end. I had so much cramps on the end also, and on the finish line, I mean, before we came to the finish here, when we went with Noyens and then Silva, I said to myself, hey, I was already with Silva in the front, and yeah, and then I have seen also Bonin coming from the back, and I haven't really saw how much meters it was, but I was thinking maybe the other one's on the wheel, and I just opened the sprint, but I opened it too early. But on the end, I think that's the race how it is, and I think on the end I should be still happy about this third place, because to defend again, to win here was really, really hard. All been racing against my team, or been racing against me, and with this result, we still can be happy about it.
Yeah, he's very philosophical, isn't he, Fabian Cancellara? I've never seen him look like that. He's so spent, so drained. He really had a hard day out there, Dave.
Look, he did have a hard day, but great words by him, I think, because he accepted defeat there, but he said, look, I should be happy, and so he should be, because an incredible race. I think that's why we love him. That's why people around the world love watching Fabian Cancellara, and he threw the challenge out. He did the right thing. He's done it before. He's gone from such a long way out, so I think he expected himself to be able to do it. He fell short, not by much, so it was a great effort.
Look, let's take a look at some of the highlights now, and there were quite a few highlights. We saw the last 65 kilometres or so here on SBS. Tom Bonin, we spoke about the fact that he made some strange decisions today, and I thought for a moment there it was going to be a replay of last year's Flanders. It didn't quite work out that way.
Well, this was the point where Bonin opened up the attack, and then you could see Cancellara counter-attacked him, and this is when he went away. This was really, well, what we thought was going to be the crunch point of the race. It was a crunch point. It wasn't the winning move as it turned out, but it really did set the race up for the next 40-odd kilometres. 41 kilometres to go there, and Bonin, you know, he really just shouldn't have attacked. I've said it already, but when you've got a teammate up the road, you don't attack someone like Fabian Cancellara. You let him attack and you follow.
Is it a case of Bonin having so much pressure on his shoulders to win these big Belgian races on his home turf? Do you think he's just had a brain snap? Is he being a little bit too greedy?
Well, look, possibly. I think he was a little bit eager, because the other point is, if he had have waited for Cancellara to attack, Cancellara had have attacked, he might have been that little bit fresher. He might have been able to go across with him to his teammate. Then it would have been three men in the front, and they might have ridden away, the three of them, and won the bike race. But instead, it all changed. So Look, just a big mistake, and I'm not sure what the team will be saying to him, but I'm not sure if it was the tactic that they told him to attack or whether it was his decision, but it was the wrong one.
Well, we can join Scott Sunderland now, who's on location. And Scotty, we've just seen a fantastic race. We're just watching Fabian Cancellara now struggling, or joining Sylvain Chavanel with about 32 kilometres to go. And it was about this time in the race when you said that you thought Fabian still looked strong enough and good enough to win. It didn't work out that way.
No, Fabian didn't win, and I could see actually what was happening. Just after we finished talking, we could see how Fabian was calling up the car, and he was calling to the neutral cars for water bottles. And this is one of Fabian's biggest problems, because he's such a big man of 82 kilos. He needs a lot of water to keep hydrated. And because the weather turned around and was quite different to what it was being predicted, of 12, 13 degrees and rain, it actually got up to about 16, 17 degrees and sunshine. And we had this same problem the year that Stuart O'Grady won in Paris-Roubaix, that Fabian really struggled with getting enough water to him. Because of the difficulty of the terrain and generally just being able to get back to the team car, which is sometimes 2 kilometres behind, to get water. I'm not making excuses for Fabian, but he definitely didn't help himself there. But, it turned around completely, and I think the wind conditions and the changed weather predictions, as I said, enabled a very big, large group coming into the Muir together, and hence why we've seen still all the top leaders, barring the Garmin guys, still fighting it out to the finish.
Scotty, what did you make of Philippe Gilbert? We're watching Philippe Gilbert now. I think it's on the Muir, and he attacked in a ferocious way.
Yeah, he really went. Gilbert did everything he had to do today. I don't think he could have done much more. He did everything right. He was just lacking the horsepower to go from the Bosberg right through to the finish. Like I said, once again, I think if there had been more difficult weather conditions and generally more wind, etc., I think riders like Gilbert would have been in a different situation at the end. It would have suited him a lot more.
And what do you know of Nick Noyens, the winner? Have you worked with him?
No, I didn't get a chance to catch him. I talked to him the other night in the hotel, and he was really relaxed coming into the race. I think the best thing that happened for Nick, both for self-confidence and just taking pressure off his shoulders, for both him and the team, for Bjarne Riis, was that he won in Dwarfdorf Flanders about 10 days ago. This race gave him the confidence and also showed the team that he's the winner. And he's just gone in today, just taking it really relaxed and just doing everything he had to do, but not one effort more than that. And at the end of the day, of a 260k race, you cannot bloody burn any matches whatsoever that are unnecessary. And that's what Nick did, and he had the goods in the end, even against a super strong Cancellara and a fantastic ride from Chavanel.
Scott, looking ahead to Paris-Roubaix next week, how will Cancellara's performance today, the fact that he worked so hard, will it change the dynamics of the race next week? And the fact that he used so much energy, how will that affect him? How will he back up next week?
It won't affect him at all. On the contrary, now he's got a break coming up after Paris-Roubaix, so all that is now is active recuperation. He'll do a bit of a reconnaissance on Thursday, a bit longer training, a little bit of motivation behind the car, etc. But generally, just now trying to keep the speed in the legs. If he's tired, he rests. If he's feeling okay, he'll do a little bit of extra work. But the work that he needs to do is just mainly just going over, doing the reconnaissance of the pavé, just seeing if there's any big holes, and generally seeing how all the cobblestones are sitting this year, etc. And the other obstacles. But he's going to be fine, Tomo. He's got plenty of time, and he's been there and done that before. He knows what has to happen, and he's got a fantastic team behind him. I think he'll be definitely back there for the fight next weekend.
Fighting words there, Scott Sunderland. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll talk to you next week when we cover Paris-Roubaix live here on SBS. Good on you, Scotty.
No worries, boys. Have a good one.
Well, we can now cross to Matthew Keenan, who has all the presentation and podium details.
Just about ready to roll with the presentation for the top three, with Fabian Cancellara, last year's winner, and the man that took the race by the scruff of the neck, but it didn't quite work out, finishing in third place. And as he said after the race, everybody is beatable. And when you are the big favourite, it comes with a lot of pressure and huge expectations. Sylvain Chavanel, the Frenchman that was in so many of the moves. He's the first Frenchman on the podium at the Tour of Flanders since Frédéric Moncassin finished in second position back in 1997. But it's Nick Noyens who becomes the 67th winner of the Belgians in the Ronde van Vlaanderen, the 95th edition, the biggest win of his career. He's won the season openers in Belgium, Het Valken, also Kuurne-Brussel-Kuurne, but this one overshadows them quite significantly. And what a result for Bjarne Riis. Not long ago, Bjarne Riis was backstage with the three men, getting prepared to step out onto the podium, and right next to his former lieutenant, Fabian Cancellara. Can't help but wonder what the real atmosphere was like in that room as Cancellara hugged the winner and looked across, as Bjarne Riis, I should say, hugged the winner and looked across to Fabian Cancellara. We saw the reaction from Bjarne Riis, a big moment for the Dane. Nick Noyens is going to be another man to watch next weekend when we head to Paris-Roubaix. He, once again, despite winning here, probably won't be one of the big favourites. He'll be among the second tier of favourites. He'll be heavily marked next week, you'd imagine, by comparison to this week, which is going to make things more difficult for him. Sylvain Chavanel, despite the brilliant ride, wasn't showing any great signs of being overjoyed. He's finally cracked a smile. He came so close. Champagne, the spoils of victory for Nick Noyens. Noyens just having a few problems with the champagne. He doesn't have quite the experience of Fabian Cancellara, but he's starting to get plenty of it. I'm sure we're going to see a lot more of him throughout the season.
Well, congratulations to the podium winners. Fabian Cancellara in third place behind Chavanel, and the winner of the Ronde van Vlaanderen, Nick Noyens, a local hero from not too far away. He hails from the town of Liège in the Flemish part of Belgium. So local success, but not particularly the rider that most of the Flemish people would have thought would have graced the podium today. All eyes, I'm sure, would have been on Tom Bone. And Dave McKenzie's with me. Dave, I just want to ask you about the tactics of Garmin Cervelo. Jonathan Borders told his troops, and he had three leaders out there today. He had Thor Hushovd, he had Tyler Farrar and Heinrich Hauser, and he told them all with about 20 k's to go, don't work.
Yeah, look, obviously we saw that on the vision. Look, I think it was a tough call, and you have to make split-second decisions in a race like this. And look, I think it was the right call to make. Two sprinters, or three sprinters, if you like, in Hausler as well. Hausler being probably more a strong rider than a sprinter, but. BMC had 6 or 7 riders there. There was a couple of other teams that had riders there. So, look, I think it was the right call. It was a risky call, but putting one rider on the front probably wasn't going to change the equation anyway. And as it turned out, they did bring back Cancellara, as we saw. So, prove that they didn't have the legs. They didn't work, and they still couldn't go with the move in that final selection. So, obviously the right call by Wouters.
Well, you called it too. We saw BMC, they had 7 riders at the front of the peloton. They literally just buried themselves today.
Well, they had to. I mean, I really didn't think they were, but I think sitting back in the nice armchair watching it, you forget how hard it is out there sometimes. But look, they did a great race in the end, because they had Hincapie, 16th finishes for him, as Matt Keenan said, and Alessandro Balan, previous winner, he went on the attack towards the end. He tried to cross the gap when Gilbert attacked as well to him. He just couldn't quite get there. Things might have changed if he had have got across. So, look, I think they had a great showing.
Just on Cancellara, last year at the Paris-Roubaix, we saw him virtually time trial the last 50 kilometres to the finish line and win the race. I just wonder, the question's being asked, did he go out too early this year? And was he trying to bank on doing what he did last year in Roubaix?
Oh, look, obviously he had the confidence. For me, I think everyone, so many people on the web, in the media, fans were saying Cancellara will win. He will win, he will win, he will win. But we have to remind ourselves that you have to be on a super day at Flanders, at Roubaix, at any of these one-day classics. They're 250 to 290 kilometres. And then you also need a little bit of luck. And Cancellara, he was very, very good today. but he just was lacking that 1 or 2% at the end, and maybe a little bit of luck as well. So, you know, it just proves that it's not as easy as Cancellara has made it look in the past. I think he still tactically rode a great race. He's proved to himself, to everyone in the world of cycling, that he can attack 40, 50 kilometres out, go away and win. He almost pulled it off, didn't he? Even when he got caught, he still almost pulled it off. So, look, it was a great ride. As Scott Sunderland said, he'll bounce back for Roubaix. Will he win? Well, I'm not sure if he will.
Well, why shouldn't he win?
Well, Roubaix, well,
yeah.
look, he can win, absolutely. But I think now the confidence, they'll go back and they'll have to suddenly think about their tactics and maybe say, well, maybe I won't attack.
But I'll ask you the same question I asked Scott Sunderland. Why should he win then? Because I saw him there just a few moments ago. He looks spent.
Yeah, look, he is spent. But as Scotty said, he's done it before. He's been there, done it before. He rides both classics. They're a week apart. He's done it for the last, 5, 7 years, if you like. So he'll be tired, but he'll be no more tired than if he did win the bike race. So he'll just go with the usual plan. The tactics might change going into Roubaix, but look, it all goes on feeling, and you know, we'll see him put on a big battle. He's obviously got great form. He come up short. It was only in that last 10, 12 kilometres out of 260 odd, so it was a great ride.
Well, 10 Australians started this year's Flanders, and I'll tell you what, 3 of them, Matty Hayman, Simon Clark and Baden Cook, among some of the 10 that were that made it to the start line today, they performed very well as well.
Yeah, Mitch Docker was the other one. Yeah. We forget the guys because there's so many Aussies now, and Simon Clark, you know, the rider that I expect to see more in Liège, Bastogne-Liège, Flèche Wallonne, more of a climber's sort of one-day classic. He did a brilliant ride today. He did his job for his teammates, and in the end, Astana didn't really have anyone there in the final. So the team will be so happy with him. Mitch Docker making that break, as we could see. You know, he's riding very well. He's already had a win this year. So Docker, you know, he'll go from strength to strength. The team will have a bit more confidence in him here. He's growing as a rider. And look, I've always thought he's a class act rider who's going to take probably a few more years to develop. And he's in for the long haul, and this will, you know, put him in good stead.
Well, Mitch Docker, Matthew Keenan has known Mitch Docker ever since he was in nappies, he was telling me earlier today, and he was beside himself when Docker made the break and stayed away for a majority of the first part of the race. So Matthew Keenan, a pretty happy boy, and this will be a good confidence booster for Docker. He's done Paris-Roubaix in the past, and I think he's developing nicely into a classics rider.
Yeah, absolutely, and you can see by the shot there, that's on the Koppenberg. This is where Simon Clark was away with Sylvain Chavanel. This is where Chavanel really went away here, and there you see the two of them, Clark and Chavanel. Clark, brilliant ride by him. Look at him, he's a really small, slight-built rider. He comes from Melbourne, and he can get up the climbs in Italy, in Spain, and then he can come to the cobbled classics like this and handle himself in the peloton. He's a very consistent bike rider. Matt Hayman, the other rider from Team Sky here, I mean, he's such a war horse. He's been around for years. He was a great domestique on the Rabobank squad. Now he's shifted to Sky, and again, he did another fine job.
Well, let's just, as we look at the vision, look ahead to Paris-Roubaix next week. And given that you've seen Flanders now, and it's been a tough race, 260 kilometres. I think the riders are probably thankful that the cold and wet conditions normally associated with the Spring Classics didn't really eventuate today. Mild weather temperatures, sunny conditions for the most part. If it remains the same, the weather I'm talking about, and the dust kicks up next week, how do you think the race will unfold?
Well, I think looking at today's race, I think we've got a wide open bike race. I think there's 15, 20 or so guys that can win Paris-Roubaix. Nick Noyens, again, who would have picked him to win Flanders today? So I think it'll be a wide open bike race. If the weather's bad, well, that diminishes that group of potential favourites. But we'll have a great bike race, and I think you'll see potentially a few more come into the fold. Guys like Thor Hushovd, he'll be a bit more of a challenger in Roubaix rather than Flanders. The hills, even though they're small, he's stronger on the flats. We saw him win that stage in the Tour de France when they went across a couple of the sections of Roubaix a couple of years ago. So riders like that will come more to the fore. It's going to be a great race.
It's great to see the World Championship jersey on the shoulders of Thor Hushovd in these Sprint Classics, just like we saw Cadel Evans last year. Where was it? Liège-Bastogne-Liège.
Flèche-Wallonne.
Flèche-Wallonne, that's right, yeah. OK, more from Paris-Roubaix and Flanders. We'll talk more about Roubaix after the break, but don't forget that you can get your fix of cycling anytime by visiting the Cycling Central website. All you have to do is click onto sbs.com.au/Cycling Central for all the latest news, blogs and the latest video content. And a reminder to join the conversation on the Cycling Central Facebook page or join us here on Twitter. And while you're there, don't forget to enter our great competition. It's a beauty. You can win a limited edition Flandrian Excalibur bike by the legendary Belgian cycling company Ridley. And to win this bike, it's worth $4,500. All you have to do is just tell us in 25 words or less why Ridley is the Belgian warrior of bikes. Can't be that hard. To enter, simply look for the link on the Cycling Central website or click the competition tab on the Cycling Central Facebook page. The best answer, as decided by our judges, will take home this fantastic bike. Competition closes on Monday, April 11. For full terms and conditions, all you have to do is go to the website, sbs.com.au. If you've just joined us, we've seen a remarkable Tour of Flanders. Here's how the final few kilometres panned out.
Cancellara now at the front, Boonen right next to him. Two of the big stars, two of the big favourites. Who would have thought 20 minutes ago we thought Cancellara was riding away with it. Suddenly now we've got a group of 10 or more riders that are going to fight it out. Will it be a late attack?
It's Sebastian Langeveld that's made the move. Fletcher is responding. I think all of us could be forgiven for thinking that Cancellara was going to ride away. His former director, Scott Sunderland, he thought it was sewn up. So too did Wilfred Peters. He was concerned about Chavanel working with Cancellara. And now we're seeing Fabian show signs of weakness. He almost cracked on the Bosberg. It's Langeveld, the Dutchman from Rabobank, that is trying to ride off the front. And if it comes down to a sprint, Tom Boonen, he's been following the wheels, and George Hincapie, I haven't seen him do a turn of pace at the front yet either.
George Hincapie, the American, oh gee, it'd be great to see him win. Cancellara, he's trying for one last effort. To me, this says he knows he can't win it in a sprint. He has to go on an attack, and he is. He's forcing.
Once again, it's Chavanel that is marking the move. Nick Noyens is in third position as Tom Boonen is sitting on the wheels, letting the others do the chasing. 3 kilometres to race.
Look at the damage that Cancellara has done, but he's dragged to with him. Chavanel, what a brilliant ride by the Frenchman. Probably ride of the day.
And Nick Noyens is only just holding on. How ironic would it be if it comes down to a two-up sprint between Chavanel and Cancellara? But the Belgian from Saxo Bank has managed to hold on only just.
Unbelievable. But now they have to try and rotate turns. Look at it. It's just splintered here at the back here. Each rider is fending for himself.
Geraint Thomas in the white colours of Team Sky as Gilbert is also trying to go across. Ballan chasing in the red colours. Fabian Cancellara is on the offensive. Will Chavanel come through this time? No, he won't. He's sitting on the wheel again. Everybody still intimidated by number one.
Well, I'd almost think that Chavanel, he wants to do as little as possible. I know it's a tough tactic to pull, but if he keeps pulling here, he still can be beaten by the two riders with him. But he's got Tom Boonen, one of the fastest riders in the back. Boonen obviously should be sitting on the back. This can play into both of their hands.
2 kilometres as we see Chavanel is working turns now. He sits in second position. Nick Noyens just behind him. And Chavanel is calling Cancellara through. He gives him the little hand sling.
It's all the bluff game, though. Chavanel wants to get Cancellara to work, so he puts the hand out. It's a tactic riders play all the time. Chavanel needs to try and use these two riders up.
The advantage for this leading group of 3 is back in that chasing group. Tom Boonen is sitting on, and that's going to play on the mind of the men that are chasing. They're going to be concerned about taking Big Tomica to the finish and in contention for the sprint. These three now might survive. It could still be a battle between Chavanel and Cancellara as Geraint Thomas is doing the chasing. He's thinking about the Spaniard, Juan Antonio Fletcher.
Well, Fletcher there just trying to nick off the front. Boonen jumped on his wheel. Let's see if we can get a shot of them in the background. Cancellara, he's found his legs again. There's Fletcher now trying to chase. It's desperate. They're coming into the kilometre to go.
It's Fletcher that's chasing. Tom Boonen is sitting on his wheel under the red kite. 1 kilometre to race. Chavanel, he looks across the shoulder. Nick Noyens, he might be in the best position. He's just got rid of the water bottle. He sits in third place. He's got to play the cool hand. It's a difficult sprint. The last 100 metres is slightly uphill.
They can't wait for too long. They've got to start to move soon, but you see the hesitation at the back. I think these three riders might have it. Nick Noyens, can he take it for Saxo Bank? How ironic would that be?
Tom Boonen now is trying to go across. He's got a little bit of distance on Juan Antonio Fletcher. Chavanel is looking over the shoulder. He's maybe just hoping that Tom Boonen can make it. Cancellara starts to open out a long way from home. Fabian looking to go back to back. Noyens is on the wheel. Chavanel looks as though he's starting to lose ground as Tom Boonen is still in contention. 6 hours of racing. Noyens is going over the top. It's going to be a Belgium victory. He's got 50 to race. Chavanel still challenging. Nick Noyens takes out the Ronda. It's Chavanel in second, Cancellara third. Noyens celebrates, Tom Boonen in fourth. What a finish.
Oh, unbelievable. Nick Noyens, who would have picked him before the start of the race? An incredible finish. Cancellara, he had no choice then but to jump early out of that corner. It was just a drag race in the end. And Nick Noyens, the Belgian for Saxo Bank.
Well, he's here with good form. He had a big win 2 weeks ago when he managed to win the Doors van Vlaanderen, but this one blows that away. The 95th edition of the Ronde van Vlaanderen, the biggest win in the career of Nick Noyens. Saxo Bank have gone back to back, but it wasn't Fabian Cancellara because he's at a new team. Bjarne Riis, he's done it again.
Well, he would be just rubbing his hands together. I don't think Noyens can even believe it. He's almost in shock himself. He's Fabian Cancellara. He's just wondering what could have been. It all fell apart for him rapidly. Here's the sprint for the peloton. There's still a decent group left.
It's Hondo in the colours of Lamprey as we see Bernard Eisel get into the thick of the action. Tyler Farrar in the centre in the Garmin Cervelo colours is going to lead them across. 1:23 behind the winner of the race.
Yeah, Nick Noyens, he'll remember this day for a long, long time on his home soil. We've just checked the long-range forecast for Paris-Roubaix, 7 days away, and it's a forecast which will interest one Aussie in particular. The forecast is for dry, sunny conditions with a top temperature of 20 degrees. Dave McKenzie, that's Stuart O'Grady weather.
Yeah, well, that's quite warm for Paris-Roubaix, and look, I think any sort of temperature will suit Stuart O'Grady. We all know how tough he is, and so look, I think a lot of riders now, they don't wish for the bad weather, but if it comes, some excel better than others. So O'Grady is that type of rider, but he'll go well in any sort of weather. Matt Goss, another rider, I just want to jump on him for a second. We didn't see him in that last 50 or 60 kilometres. I just wonder if he wasn't really on today and he's decided to not pull the pin or, you know, make it an easier day. In a week's time, he's got Paris-Roubaix. Last year, I thought he did an impressive ride. He wasn't a high-up finisher, but he was there in that lead group, I think, inside the last 30-odd kilometres. He's won Milan-San Remo. I think Paris-Roubaix will suit him better than Flanders, so it'll be interesting to see what Goss can do.
Well, Dave, just on that, Goss is from Tasmania, and he had a great win, of course, in Milan-San Remo, but that's a race where there are a few, if no cobbles on the parcours. I just wonder, I'll ask the question, is he suited? Is he a rider that's suited? We know he can climb. We know he can sprint, and we've seen him perform very, very well on Mount Buninyong in January at the Australian Road Championships. But do you think his body and his style of riding is suited to a race like Flanders and Roubaix?
Oh, look, absolutely. I think today probably just youth that wasn't on his side. You know, and I say that, I mean, he's won Milan-San Remo. It's almost a silly comment. We can see here this victory. I mean, it's one of the monuments of cycling. And he had to get over a couple of climbs. It was 290-odd kilometres, and the two climbs come near the end, but it's only two climbs. He rode a brilliant race. He's a smart bike rider. He'll develop more and more into a classic specialist, I think, as well as a stage winner in the Grand Tours. So, you know, I just think if he's 1 or 2 years away from another big classic, the Northern Classics, or maybe Roubaix.
I was going to ask you that. You say he's 1 or 2 years away. He has to develop himself to become a classics rider. Most of these guys are in their late 20s or early 30s before they win one of these classics. Matty Goss, he's born in 1986. He's 24, 25. Yeah. Surely he's too young to win one of these big races.
Well, look, he's done San Remo, but look, I think he can win Paris-Roubaix or Flanders in the next 2-3 years. He could even do it next Sunday. None of us would have picked him to win Milan-San Remo. That's the beauty of the sport. Nick Nguyen's winning, of course. You know, I think it's the sport now, the top level, there's more and more riders jumping to that top level, and suddenly now there's so many riders that can win. There's so many favourites. You know, they're picking the top 10 out in the media, in the press, but really there's 20 or 30. I think one of the big websites picked the top 10. Nick Nguyen's was nowhere in that top 10, I can tell you that.
Not at all. Heinrich Hausler, I know from speaking to his father in Inverell earlier this week that he was up for it today. It didn't quite work out that way because of the instructions from the team director, Jonathan Waters. I just wonder if they'll throw, and I'm talking about Garmin Cervelo, throw all their eggs into the Roubaix basket next week. They have to.
Well, look, I think they've got a great team for Roubaix, and I think they'll play their cards right. They've got a strong team, probably more suited to Roubaix, I'd think, in Farrar, in Hulshoff, even in Hausler. Hausler, I think, said at the press conference before the start of Flanders, he's probably 2-3% off his very best. He's close, but he's not quite there yet. 1 week in cycling can be a long time, so the tables can turn fairly quickly, and I think we'll see a really strong and aggressive showing from Garmin.
And we shouldn't forget that Hausler did finish second in Flanders a couple of years ago, and I think that performance has been underrated in many circles.
Yeah, look, I mean, it was a great ride. I think he jumped off the front of the peloton and rode in for second in the last sort of 500 metres, in fact. So it was a great ride, and I think that's what he was referring to. He's not quite back at that level just yet, so he's close to it, and I think in another week or two we might see that from Hausler, and he'll have a strong team around him.
And do you think Bonin will be fired up next week after his pretty dismal performance, dismal showing today? He's won Roubaix a couple of times. He's got to be fired up.
Oh, look, absolutely. I mean, you could see the disappointment on the face of Wilfred Peters, the team director in the car. They were devastated that they didn't win. They came close. They were second today. And their main man, Tom Boonen, really wasn't as good as Chavanel in the end. Chavanel, I think, was a stronger rider. He was out there for a bigger part of the race. He was able to follow Cancellara at the end. And, you know, he only just missed out on winning. So Boonen will want to redeem himself because the Belgian press, they put so much pressure on Tom Boonen, and they'll really now be they'll be throwing the daggers in.
And, you know, Thor Hushoff wearing the World Championship jersey, he said in Geelong after he was presented with that jersey that his main aim in 2011 was to win Roubaix. And wouldn't it be just extraordinary if he could do it with that rainbow jersey on his back to win one of the greatest races of them all?
Well, I think if you're a fan of cycling, you love seeing the World Championship jersey out in front and winning big bike races. There's been this so-called curse on the rainbow jersey for a number of years. Cadel Evans, well, he put that to the test and won last year. He had a great season with the jersey on his back. So Hushoff, I'm sure he'll have a good showing next week. And you know, again, they've got a team that is more suited to Roubaix and Garmin Cervelo, so expect to see them fire.
We've seen a great race today, an absolutely brilliant race for our first showing of the Ronde van Vlaanderen. And Dave, you're no stranger to these rows. I'm sure it conjured up a lot of good memories for you, watching the coverage.
Yeah, look, it was. I mean, some of the roads, at one point I think I used to live a kilometre from where the course was, so it does bring back great memories. And certainly you loved riding in Belgium when the weather was as good as what it was today, because you can have some terrible weather. And, you know, living and training there when the weather's so bad through February and March, sometimes you have to stick within a 30 minutes of home, because when the temperature drops and the rain and sleet comes in, it can drop to below zero. So they got lucky today, the riders, and by the sounds of it, they might be lucky next week. But you could see by the crowds, the Flandrians out on the course. It's almost like the Melbourne Cup in Australia. It stops a nation. I think we said the figures, it was incredible, the amount of people that watch it on television, the amount of people that get out on the course. They're having barbecues at home, they're watching it on TV, and they weren't let down because a Belgian rider took it out.
Well, it certainly is a unique spectacle to see Flanders and to see Roubaix, and I think SBS and the fact that cycling is taking off worldwide in this part of the world, it's becoming part of the television psyche for Australians now, and we're very proud that we've been able to present events like this, and to continue it with Roubaix next week. And just on the weather, Dave, we haven't seen a wet Flanders since 2001, and whether it's climate changing or global warming, I don't know, but you know, the spectacles of the past where wet weather riders have won in conditions like that, well, they haven't been around for 10 years.
Yeah, look, that's right. And I think it's just a cycle. I don't know if it is global warming. I think it's just a big, long cycle that's happening. But what I loved about today was that it wasn't a peloton that came to the line of 40 or 50 riders, because we've seen that in the past. We saw a classic bike race. Cancellara really set up that final 20-kilometre section, because they had to chase him. They didn't give up in the end, the peloton. BMC laid it on the line, and then we just saw it absolutely explode when they went over the Mer de Grammont in Gerardsbergen. And we saw this classic bike race that we've seen in the past, 10, 15 years back. So it was one of the greats.
OK, look, we're almost out of time, but I just want to take you back, or look ahead, I should say, to Roubaix. Have you got a tip?
Gee, look, it's a tough call. And speaking of Garmin Cervelo, maybe I will go with Thor Hushovd. I think
it's about time, I think, for him, isn't it?
Yeah, look, and
he's
one of those heavier sprinters. He's not suited to the climbs or the steep hills, so I'll go with the world champion. Why not?
Why not? On that note, Dave, we have to leave it there, and thank you for your input, and also to Matty Keenan for what's been a great call, refreshing call from a couple of Aussies who know what world cycling's all about. That's it for us tonight, but what a week of cycling we have coming up. It doesn't end here. On Wednesday evening, a special presentation. Make sure you join us for Hell of the North. It's the story of Stuart O'Grady's epic Paris-Roubaix win in 2007. It's a fabulous doco that explores the roots of the race and speaks to the biggest names in the sport. Make sure you lock in to SBS2 on Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. It's an uninterrupted coverage. Cycling Central returns next Sunday at 5 on SBS1 with more from Flanders, mountain bikes from the Cape Epic, plus a full preview of Paris-Roubaix. And then the big one next Sunday night, Paris-Roubaix, the Queen of the Classics, the Hell of the North, exclusively live here on SBS. You won't see it anywhere else, and it'll be streamed online from 10:20 p.m. Eastern. So please check your local guides, as you will not want to miss on the greatest single day's racing you'll ever see. And with so much happening across the cycling world, the best place to stay across it is our website, sbs.com.au/cycling central. And you can also get involved in the discussion at Twitter or Facebook. And just an early reminder that SBS will also be screening this May the Tour of California and selected stages, some critical, significant stages from the Giro d'Italia. That's all we have for you tonight. On behalf of Matt Keenan, Dave McKenzie and all the team here at SBS, we wish you a very good night. Goodbye for now.